Chapter 10. Altogether, we may say the adventures of the previous day had thoroughly unnerved Mr. Golyadkin. Our hero passed a very bad night. That is, he did not get thoroughly off to sleep for 5 minutes, as though some practical joker had scattered bristles in his bed. He spent the whole night in a sort of half-sleeping state, tossing from side to side, from right to left, moaning and groaning, dozing off for a moment, waking up again a minute later, and all was accompanied by a strange misery, vague memories, hideous visions. In fact, everything disagreeable that can be imagined. At one moment, the figure of Andrei Filipovich appeared before him in a strange, mysterious half-light. It was a frigid, wrathful figure, with a cold, harsh eye, and with stiffly polite word of blame on its lips. And as soon as Mr. Golyadkin began going up to Andrei Filipovich to defend himself in some way, and to prove to him that he was not at all such as his enemies presented him, that he was like this and like that he even possessed innate virtues of his own, superior to the average. At once a person only too well known for his discreditable behavior appeared on the scene, and by some most revolting means instantly frustrated poor Mr. Golyadkin's efforts on the spot, almost before the latter's eyes, blackened his reputation, trampled his dignity in the mud, and then immediately took possession of his place in the service and in society. At another time, Mr. Golyadkin's head felt sore from some sort of slight blow of late, conferred and humbly accepted, received either in the course of daily life or somehow in the performance of his duty, against which blow it was difficult to protest. And while Mr. Golyadkin was racking his brains over the question of why it was difficult to protest even against such a blow, this idea of a blow gradually melted away into a different form, into the form of some familiar, trifling, or rather important piece of nastiness, which he had seen, heard, or even himself committed, and frequently committed indeed. And not on nasty ground, not from any nasty impulse even, but just because it happened. Sometimes, for instance, out of delicacy, another time owing to his absolute defenselessness. In fact, because, in fact, Mr. Golyadkin knew perfectly well because of what. At this point, Mr. Golyadkin blushed in his sleep, and smothered his blushes, muttering to himself that, in this case, he ought to be able to show the strength of his character. He ought to be able to show, in this case, the remarkable strength of his character, and then wound up by asking himself, what after all is strength of character? Why understand it now? But what irritated and enraged Mr. Golyadkin most of all was that invariably, at such a moment, a person well known for his undignified burlesque turned up uninvited, and, regardless of the fact that the matter was apparently settled, he too would begin muttering, with an unseemly little smile, "What's the use of strength of character? How could you and I, Yakov Petrovich, have strength of character?" Then Mr. Golyadkin would dream that he was in the company of a number of persons distinguished for their wit and good breeding. That he, Mr. Golyadkin too, was conspicuous for his wit and politeness. That everybody like him, which was very agreeable to Mr. Golyadkin too, was conspicuous for his wit and politeness. That everybody liked him. Even some of his enemies who were at present began to like him, which was very agreeable to Mr. Golyadkin. That every one gave him credence, and this at last, Mr. Golyadkin himself, with gratification, overheard the host, drawing one of his guests aside, speak in his, Mr. Golyadkin's, praise. And all of a sudden, apropos of nothing, there appeared again a person, notorious for his treachery and brutal impulses, in the form of Mr. Golyadkin Jr., and on the spot, at once, by his very appearance on the scene, Mr. Golyadkin Jr. destroyed the whole triumph and glory of Mr. Golyadkin Sr., eclipsed Mr. Golyadkin Sr., trampled him in the mud, and at last proved clearly that Mr. Golyadkin Sr., that is, the genuine one, was not the genuine one at all, but the sham, and that he, Golyadkin Jr., was the real one. That, in fact, Mr. Golyadkin Sr. was not at all what he appeared to be, but something very disgraceful, and that, consequently, He had no right to mix in the society of honorable and well-bred people. All of this was done so quickly that Mr. Golyadkin had not the time to open his mouth before all of them were subjugated, body and soul, by the wicked, sham Mr. Golyadkin, and with profound contempt rejected him, the real and innocent Mr. Golyadkin. There was not one person left whose opinions the infamous Mr. Golyadkin would not have changed around. There was not left one person, even the most insignificant of the company, to whom the false and worthless Mr. Golyadkin would not make up in his blandest manner, upon whom he would not fawn in his own way, before whom he would not burn sweet and agreeable incense, so that the flattered person simply sniffed and sneezed till the tears came, in token of the intensest pleasure. And the worst of it was that all this was done in a flash. The swiftness of movement of the false and worthless Mr. Golyadkin was marvelous. He sincerely had time, for instance, to make up to one person and win his good graces, and before one could wink an eye, he was at another. He stealthily fawns on another, drops a smile of benevolence, twirls up his short, round, though rather wooden-looking leg, and already he's at a third, and is cringing upon a third. He's making up to him in a friendly way, before one has time to open one's mouth. Before one has time to feel surprised, he's at a fourth, at the same maneuvers with him. It was horrible, sorcery, and nothing else. And everyone was pleased with him, and everybody liked him, and everyone was exalting him, and all were proclaiming in chorus that his politeness and sarcastic wit was infinitely superior to the politeness and sarcastic wit of the real Mr. Golyadkin, and putting the real and innocent Mr. Golyadkin to shame thereby, and rejecting the veritable Mr. Golyadkin, and pushing and shoving out the loyal Mr. Golyadkin, and showering blows on the man so well known for his love towards his fellow creatures. In misery, in terror, and in fury, the cruelly treated Mr. Golyadkin ran out into the street and began trying to take a cab in order to drive straight to His Excellency's, or, at any rate, to Andrei Filipovich. But, horror, the cabman absolutely refused to take Mr. Golyadkin, saying, "We cannot drive two gentlemen exactly alike, sir. A good man tries to like honesty, your honor, and never has a dabble." Overcome with shame, the unimpeachable, honest Mr. Golyadkin looked round and did, in fact, assure himself with his own eyes that the cabman and Petrushka, who had joined them, were all quite right, for the depraved Mr. Golyadkin was actually on the spot, beside him, close at hand, and with his characteristic nastiness was, again, at this critical moment, certainly preparing to do something very unseemly, and quite out of keeping with that gentlemanliness of character which is usually acquired by good breeding. That gentlemanliness of which the loathsome Mr. Golyadkin II was always boasting on every opportunity. Beside himself with shame and despair, the utterly ruined, though perfectly just, Mr. Golyadkin dashed headlong away, wherever fate might lead him, but with every step he took, with every thud of his foot on the granite of the pavement, there leapt up as though out of the earth a Mr. Golyadkin precisely the same, perfectly alike, and of a revolting depravity of heart. And all these precisely similar Golyadkins set to running after one another as soon as they appeared, and stretched in a long chain like a file of geese, hobbling after the real Mr. Golyadkin. So there was nowhere to escape from these duplicates, so that Mr. Golyadkin, who was in every way deserving of compassion, was breathless with terror, so that at last a terrible multitude of duplicates had sprung into being, so that the whole town was obstructed at last by duplicate Golyadkins, and the police officer, seeing such a breach of decorum, was obliged to seize all these duplicates by the collar and to put them into the watch-house, which happened to be beside him. Numb and chill with horror, our hero woke up, and numb and chill with horror, felt that his waking state was hardly more cheerful. It was oppressive and harrowing. He was overcome by such anguish that it seemed as though someone were gnawing at his heart. At last Mr. Golyadkin could endure it no longer. "This shall not be!" he cried, resolutely sitting up in bed, and after this exclamation, he felt fully awake. It seemed as though it were rather late in the day. It was unusually light in the room. The sunshine filtered through the frozen panes and flooded the room with light, which surprised Mr. Golyadkin not a little, and, so far as Mr. Golyadkin could remember, at least, there had scarcely ever been such exceptions in the course of the heavenly luminary before. Our hero had hardly time to wonder at this, when he heard the clock buzzing behind the partition, as though it were just on the point of striking. Now, thought Mr. Golyadkin, and he prepared to listen with painful suspense. But to complete Mr. Golyadkin's astonishment, the clock whirred and only struck once. "What does this mean?" cried our hero, finally leaping out of bed. And, unable to believe his ears, he rushed behind the screen just as he was. It actually was 1 o'clock. Mr. Golyadkin glanced at Petrushka's bed, but the room did not even smell of Petrushka. His bed had long been made and left. His boots were nowhere to be seen either, an unmistakable sign that Petrushka was not in the house. Mr. Golyadkin rushed to the door. The door was locked. "But where is he? Where is Petrushka?" He went on in a whisper, conscious of intense excitement and feeling a perceptible tremor run all over him. Suddenly a thought floated into his mind. Mr. Golyadkin rushed to the table, looked all over it, felt all round. Yes, it was true. His letter of the night before to Vehemiev was not there. Petrushka was nowhere behind the screen either. The clock had just struck 1, and some new points were evident to him in Vehemiev's letter. Points that were obscure at first sight, though now they were fully explained. Petrushka had evidently been bribed at last. Yes, that was so. So this was how the chief plot was hatched, cried Mr. Golyadkin, slapping himself on the forehead, opening his eyes wider and wider. So in that filthy German woman's den, the whole power of evil lies hidden now. So she was only making a strategic diversion in directing me to the Ishmailovsky Bridge. She was putting me off the scent, confusing me, the worthless witch, and in that way laying her mines. Yes, that is so. If one only looks at the thing from that point of view, all of this is bound to be so, and the scoundrel's appearance on the scene is fully explained. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. They've kept him in revere a long while. They had him in readiness for the evil day. This is how it has all turned out. This is what it has come to. But there, never mind. No time has been lost so far. At this point, Mr. Golyadkin recollected with horror that it was past 1 in the afternoon. What if they had succeeded by now? He uttered a moan. But no, they are lying. They've not had time. We shall see. He dressed after a fashion, seized paper and a pen, and scribbled the following missive. Dear Sir Yakov Petrovich, either you or I, but both together is out of the question. And so I must inform you that your strange, absurd, and at the time impossible desire to appear to be my twin, and to give yourself out as such serves no other purpose than to bring about your complete disgrace and discomfiture. And so I beg you, for the sake of your own advantage, to step aside and make way for really honorable men of loyal aims. In the opposite case, I am ready to determine upon extreme measures. I lay down my pen and wait. However, I remain ready to oblige or to meet you with pistols. Why, Golyadkin. Our hero rubbed his hands energetically when he had finished the letter. Then, pulling on his greatcoat and putting on his hat, he unlocked his flat with his spare key and set off for the department. He reached the office, but could not make up his mind to go in. It was by now too late. It was 2:30 by Mr. Golyadkin's watch. All at once a circumstance of apparently little importance settled some doubts in Mr. Golyadkin's mind. A flushed and breathless figure suddenly made its appearance from behind the screen of the department building, and with a stealthy movement like a rat, he darted up the steps and into the entry. It was a copying clerk called Ostafyev, a man Mr. Golyadkin knew quite well, who was rather useful and ready to do anything for a trifle. Knowing Ostafyev's weak spot, and surmising that after his brief, unavoidable absence, he would probably be greedier than ever for tips, our hero made up his mind not to be sparing of them, and immediately darted up the steps, and then into the entry after him, called to him and, with a mysterious air, drew him aside into a convenient corner, behind a huge iron stove. After having led him there, our hero began questioning him. "Well, my dear fellow, how are things going in there? You understand me?" "Yes, Your Honor. I wish you good health, Your Honor." "All right, my good man, all right. But I'll reward you, my good fellow. Well, you see, how are things?" "What is Your Honor asking?" At this point, Ostafiev held his hand as though by accident before his open mouth. "You see, my dear fellow, this is how it is. But don't you imagine... Come, is Andrei Filipovich here?" "Yes, he is here." "And are the clerks here?" "Yes, sir, they are here as usual." "And His Excellency, too?" "And His Excellency, too." Here the man held his hand before his mouth again, and looked rather curiously and strangely at Mr. Golyadkin. So at least our hero fancied. "And there's nothing special there, my good man?" "No, sir. Certainly not, sir." "So there's nothing concerning me, my friend? Is there nothing going on there? That is, nothing more than... Nothing more, you understand, my friend?" "No, sir. I've heard nothing so far, sir." Again the man put his hand before his mouth, and again looked rather strangely at Mr. Golyadkin. The fact was, Mr. Golyadkin was trying to read Ostafiev's countenance, trying to discover whether there was not something hidden in it. And in fact, he did look as though he were hiding something. Ostafiev seemed to grow colder and more churlish, and did not enter into Mr. Golyadkin's interest with the same sympathy as at the beginning of the conversation. "He is to some extent justified," thought Mr. Golyadkin. "After all, what am I to him? Perhaps he has already been bribed by the other side, and that's why he has just been absent. But here, I'll try him." Mr. Golyadkin realized that the moment for kopecks had arrived. "Here, my dear fellow." "I'm very grateful for Your Honor's kindness." "I'll give you more than that." "Yes, Your Honor." "I'll give you some more directly, and when this business is over, I'll give you as much again. Do you understand?" The clerk did not speak. He stood at attention and stared fixedly at Golyadkin. "Come, tell me now, have you heard nothing about me?" "I think, so far, I have not, so to say, nothing so far." Ostafiev, like Mr. Golyadkin, spoke deliberately and preserved a mysterious air, looking at the ground, trying to fall into the suitable tone, and in fact, doing his very utmost to earn what had been promised him, for what he has received already he reckoned as already earned. "And you know nothing?" "So far, nothing, sir." "Listen, maybe you will know." "Later on, of course, maybe I shall know." "It's a poor lookout," thought our hero. "Listen, here's something more, my dear fellow." "I am truly grateful for Your Honor." "Was Verhemyev here yesterday?" "Yes, sir." "And somebody else? Was he... Try and remember, brother." The man ransacked his memory for a moment, and could think of nothing appropriate. "No, sir, there wasn't anybody else." A silence followed. "Listen, brother, here's some more. Tell me all, every detail." "Yes, sir." Ostafiev had by now become as soft as silk, which was just what Mr. Golyadkin needed. "Explain to me now, my good man. What footing is he on?" "All right, sir. A good one, sir," answered the man, gazing open-eyed at Mr. Golyadkin. "But how do you mean, all right?" "Well, it's just as that, sir." Here Ostafiev twitched his eyebrows significantly, but he was utterly nonplussed, and did not know what more to say. "It's a poor lookout," thought Mr. Golyadkin. "And hasn't anything more happened? In there? About Verhemyev?" "But everything is just as usual." "Think a little." "There is, they say." "Come, what?" Ostafiev put his hand in front of his mouth. "Wasn't there a letter from here to me?" "Behiv, the attendant, went to Verhemyev's lodging, to their German landlady, so I'll go and ask him if you like." "Do me the favor, brother, for goodness sake." "I only mean, you mustn't imagine anything, brother. I only mean, yes, you question him, brother, Find out whether they are not getting up something concerning me. Find out how he is acting. That is what I want. This is what you must find out, my dear fellow, and then I'll reward you, my good man." "I will, Your Honor. And Ivan Semyonovitch sat in your place today, sir." "Ivan Semyonovitch? Oh, really? You don't say so." Andrei Filipovich told him to sit there. "Really? How did that happen? You must find out, brother. For God's sake, find out. Brother, find it all out. And I'll reward you, my dear fellow. That's what I would like to know. And don't you imagine anything, brother." "Just so, sir. Just so. I'll go at once." "And aren't you going in today, sir?" "No, my friend, I only looked round. I only looked round, you know. I only came to have a look around, my friend. And I'll reward you afterwards, my friend." "Yes, sir." The man ran rapidly and eagerly up the stairs, and Mr. Golyadkin was left alone. "It's a poor lookout," he thought. It's a bad business, a bad business. Things are in a bad way for us now. What does it all mean? What did that drunkard's insinuations mean, for instance? And whose trickery was it? I know whose it was, and what a thing this is. No doubt they found him and made him sit there. But after all, did they sit him there? It was Andrei Filipovich sat him there, and with what object? Probably they found out that is Vehemyev's work. That is, not Vehemyev's. He is as stupid as an ashen post, Vehemyev is. And they are all at work on his behalf, and they egged that scoundrel on to come here for the same purpose. And the German woman brought up her grievance, the one-eyed hussy. I always suspected that the intrigue was not without an object, and that in all this old womanish gossip there must be something. And I said as much to Kreshtin Ivanovitch, telling him they'd sworn to cut a man's throat, in a moral sense, of course, and they pounced upon Karolina Ivanova. Yes, there is a master's hand at work in this, one can see. Yes, sir, there are master hands at work in this, not Vehemyev's. I've said already that Vehemyev is stupid, but I know who it is behind it all. It's that rascal, the impostor. It's only that he relies upon, which is partly proved by his successes in the best society. And it would certainly be desirable to know on what footing he stands now. What is he now among them? Only, why have they taken Ivan Semyonovitch? What the devil do they want with Ivan Semyonovitch? Could not they have found anyone else? Though it would come to the same thing, whoever it had been. And the only thing I know is that I have suspected Ivan Semyonovitch for a long time past. I noticed long ago what a nasty, horrid old man he was. They say he lends money and takes interest like any Jew. To be sure, the bear's the leading spirit in the whole affair. One can detect the bear in the whole affair. It began in this way. It began at the Ishmailovsky Bridge. That's how it began. At this point, Mr. Golyadkin frowned, as though he had taken a bite out of a lemon, probably remembering something very unpleasant. But there, it doesn't matter, he thought. I keep harping on my own troubles. What will Ostafyev find out? Most likely he is staying on or has been delayed somehow. It is a good thing, in a sense, that I am intriguing like this, and am laying mines on my side, too. I've only to give Ostafyev 10 kopecks and he's, so to speak, on my side. Only the point is he really on my side? Perhaps they've got him on their side, too, and they are carrying on an intrigue by means of him on their side, too. He looks a ruffian, the rascal, a regular ruffian. He's hiding something, the rogue. No, nothing, says he, and I am deeply grateful to your honor, says he. You ruffian, you. He heard a noise. Mr. Golyadkin shrank up and skipped behind the stove. Someone came downstairs and went out into the street. Who could that be going away now? Our hero thought to himself. A minute later, footsteps were audible again. At this point, Mr. Golyadkin could not resist poking the very tip of his nose out beyond his corner. He poked it out and instantly withdrew it again, as though someone had pricked it with a pin. This time, someone he knew well was coming. That is, the scoundrel, the intriguer, and the reprobate. He was approaching with his usual mean, tripping little step, prancing and shuffling with his feet as though he were going to kick someone. The rascal, our hero thought to himself. Mr. Golyadkin could not, however, help observing that the rascal had, under his arm, a huge green portfolio belonging to His Excellency. He's on a special commission again, thought Mr. Golyadkin, flushing crimson and shrinking into himself more than ever from vexation. As soon as Mr. Golyadkin Jr. had slipped past Mr. Golyadkin Sr. without observing him in the least, footsteps were heard for the third time, and this time, Mr. Golyadkin guessed that these were Ostaviev's. It was, in fact, the sleek figure of a copying clerk, Pisarenko by name. This surprised Mr. Golyadkin. Why had he mixed up other people in their secret? Our hero wondered. What barbarians! Nothing is sacred to them. Well, my friend, he brought out, addressing Pisarenko. Who sent you, my friend? I've come about your business. There's no news so far from anyone. But should there be, we'll let you know. And Ostaviev? It was quite possible for him to come, Your Honor. His Excellency has walked through the room twice, and I've no time to stay. Thank you, my good man, thank you. Only tell me— Upon my word, sir, I can't stay. They are coming for us every minute. But if Your Honor will stay here, we'll let you know if anything happens concerning your little affair. No, my friend, you just tell me— Excuse me, I've no time to stay, sir, said Pisarenko, tearing himself away from Mr. Golyadkin, who had clutched him by the lapel of his coat. I really can't. If Your Honor will stay here, we'll let you know. In a minute, my good man, in a minute. In a minute, my good fellow. I tell you what, here's a letter, and I'll reward you, my good man. Yes, sir. Try and give it to Mr. Golyadkin, my dear fellow. Golyadkin? Yes, my man, to Mr. Golyadkin. Very good, sir. As soon as I get off, I'll take it, and you stay here, meanwhile. No one will see you here. No, my good man, don't imagine. I'm not standing here to avoid being seen, but I'm not going to stay here now, my friend. I'll be close here in the side of the street. There's a coffee house near here, so I'll wait there. And if anything happens, you let me know about anything, you understand? Very good, sir. Only let me go, I understand. And I'll reward you, Mr. Golyadkin called after Pisarenko, when he had at last released him. The rogue seemed to be getting rather rude, our hero reflected as he stealthily emerged from behind the stove. There's some other dodge here, that's clear. At first it was one thing and another. He really was in a hurry, though. Perhaps there's a great deal to do in the office, and His Excellency has been through the room twice. How did that happen? Never mind. It may mean nothing, perhaps, but now we shall see. At this point, Mr. Golyadkin was about to open the door, intending to go out into the street, when suddenly, at that very instant, His Excellency's carriage was opened from within, and a gentleman jumped out. This gentleman was no other than Mr. Golyadkin Jr., who had only gone out 10 minutes before. Mr. Golyadkin Sr. remembered that the director's flat was only a couple of paces away. He's been out on a special commission, our hero thought to himself. Meanwhile, Mr. Golyadkin Jr. took out of the carriage a thick green portfolio and other papers. Finally, giving some orders to the coachman, he opened the door, almost ran up against Mr. Golyadkin Sr., purposefully avoiding noticing him, acting in this way expressly to annoy him, and mounted the office staircase at a rapid canter. It's a bad lookout, thought Mr. Golyadkin. This is what it has come to now. Oh, good Lord, look at him. For half a minute, our hero remained motionless. At last he made up his mind. Without pausing to think, though he was aware of a violent palpitation of the heart and a tremor in all his limbs, he ran up the stairs after his enemy. Here goes. What does it matter to me? I have nothing to do with the case, he thought, taking off his hat, his greatcoat, and his goloshes in the entry. When Mr. Golyadkin walked into his office, it was already getting dusk. Neither Andrei Filipovich nor Anton Antonovich were in the room. Both of them were in the director's room, handing in reports. The director, so it was rumored, was in haste to report to a still higher excellency. In consequence of this, and also because twilight was coming on, and the office hours were almost over, several of the clerks, especially the younger ones, were, at the moment when our hero entered, enjoying a period of inactivity, gathered together in groups. They were talking, arguing, and laughing, and some of the most youthful, that is, belonging to the lowest grades in the service, had got up a game of pitch-farthing in a corner by a window. Knowing what was proper, and feeling at the moment a special need to conciliate and get on with them, Mr. Golyadkin immediately approached those with him he used to get on best, in order to wish them good day, and so on. But his colleagues answered his greetings rather strangely. He was unpleasantly impressed by a certain coldness, even curtness, one might almost say severity in their manner. No one shook hands with him. Some simply said, "Good day," and walked away. Others barely nodded. One simply turned away and pretended not to notice him. At last some of them, and what mortified Mr. Golyadkin most of all, some of the youngsters of the lowest grades, mere lads who, as Mr. Golyadkin justly observed about them, were capable of nothing but hanging out and playing pitch-farthing at every opportunity, little by little collected round Mr. Golyadkin, formed a group round him, and almost barred his way. They all looked at him with a sort of insulting curiosity. It was a bad sign. Mr. Golyadkin felt this, and very judiciously decided not to notice it. Suddenly, a quite unexpected event completely finished him off, as they say, and utterly crushed him. At the moment most trying to Mr. Golyadkin Sr., suddenly, as though by design, there appeared in the group of fellow clerks surrounding him the figure of Mr. Golyadkin Jr., gay as ever, smiling a little smile as ever, nimble too as ever. In short, mischievous, skipping and tripping, chuckling and fawning, with sprightly tongue and sprightly toe, as always, precisely as he had been the day before, at a very unpleasant moment for Mr. Golyadkin Sr., for instance. Grinning, tripping, and turning with a smile that seemed to say good evening to everyone, he squeezed his way into the group of clerks, shaking hands with one, slapping another on the shoulder, putting his arm round another, explaining to a fourth how he had come to be employed by His Excellency, where he had been, what he had done, what he had brought with him. To the fifth, probably his most intimate friend, he gave a resounding kiss. In fact, everything happened as it had in Mr. Golyadkin's dream. When he had skipped about to his heart's content, polished them all off in his usual way, disposed them all in his favor, whether he needed them or not, when he had lavished his blandishments to the delectation of all the clerks, Mr. Golyadkin Jr. suddenly, and most likely by mistake, for he had not yet time to notice his senior, held out his hand to Mr. Golyadkin Sr. also. Probably also by mistake, though he had had time to observe the dishonorable Mr. Golyadkin Jr. thoroughly. Our hero at once eagerly seized the hand so unexpectedly held out to him, and pressed it with the warmest and friendliest way. Pressed it with a strange, rather unexpected inner feeling, with a tearful emotion. Whether our hero was misled by the first movements of his worthless foe, or was taken unawares, or, without recognizing it, felt at the bottom of his heart how defenseless he was, it was difficult to say. The fact remains that Mr. Golyadkin Sr., apparently knowing what he was doing, of his own free will, before witnesses, solemnly shook hands with him whom he had called his mortal foe. But what was the amazement, the stupefaction and fury? What was the honor and the shame of Mr. Golyadkin Sr., when his enemy and mortal foe, the dishonorable Mr. Golyadkin Jr., noticing the mistake of that persecuted, innocent, perfidiously deceived man, without a trace of shame, of feeling, of compassion, or of conscience, pulled his hand away with insufferable rudeness and insolence. What was worse, he shook the hand as though it had been polluted with something horrid. What is more, he spat aside with disgust, accompanying this with a most insulting gesture. Worse still, he drew out his handkerchief and, in the most unseemly way, wiped all the fingers that had rested for one moment in the hand of Mr. Golyadkin Sr. While he did this, Mr. Golyadkin Jr. looked about him in his characteristic horrid way, took care that everyone should see what he was doing, glanced into people's eyes, and evidently tried to insinuate to everyone everything that was most unpleasant in regard to Mr. Golyadkin Sr. Mr. Golyadkin Jr.'s revolting behavior seemed to arouse general indignation among the clerks that surrounded them. Even the frivolous youngsters showed their displeasure. A murmur of protest rose on all sides. Mr. Golyadkin could not but discern the general feeling, but suddenly, an appropriate witticism that bubbled from the lips of Mr. Golyadkin Jr. shattered, annihilated our hero's last hopes, and inclined the balance again in favor of his deadly and undeserving foe. "These are Russian fabulous, gentlemen. Allow me to introduce the youthful Faublas," piped Mr. Golyadkin Jr. with his characteristic insolence, pirouetting and threading his way among the clerks, and directing their attention to the petrified, though genuine, Mr. Golyadkin. "Let us kiss each other, darling," he went on with insufferable familiarity, addressing the man he had so treacherously insulted. Mr. Golyadkin Jr.'s unworthy jest seemed to touch a responsive chord, for it contained an artful allusion to an incident with which all were apparently familiar. Our hero was painfully conscious of the hand of his enemies, but he had made up his mind by now. With glowing eyes, with pale face, with a fixed smile, he tore himself somehow out of the crowd and with uneven, hurried steps, made straight for His Excellency's private room. In the room next to the last, he was met by Andrei Filipovich, who had only just come out from seeing His Excellency, and although they were present in this room at the moment, a good number of persons of whom Mr. Golyadkin knew nothing, yet our hero did not care to take such a fact into consideration. Boldly, resolutely, directly, almost wondering at himself and inwardly admiring his own courage, without loss of time, he accosted Andrei Filipovich, who was a good deal surprised by the unexpected attack. What is it? What do you want?" asked the head of the division, not hearing Mr. Golyadkin's hesitant words. "Andrei Filipovich, Andrei Filipovich, may I have a conversation with His Excellency at once and in private?" our hero said resolutely and distinctly, fixing the most determined glance on Andrei Filipovich. "What next? Of course not." Andrei Filipovich scanned Mr. Golyadkin from head to foot. "I say all this, Andrei Filipovich, because I am surprised that no one here unmasks the impostor and scoundrel." "What?" "Scoundrel, Andrei Filipovich." "Of whom are you pleased to speak in those terms?" "Of a certain person, Andrei Filipovich. I'm alluding, Andrei Filipovich, to a certain person. I have the right. I imagine, Andrei Filipovich, that the authorities would surely encourage such action," added Mr. Golyadkin, evidently hardly knowing what he was saying. "Andrei Filipovich, but no doubt you see yourself, Andrei Filipovich, that this honorable action is a mark of my loyalty in every way, of my looking upon my superior as a father, Andrei Filipovich. I, as much as to say, look upon my benevolent superior as a father and blindly trust my fate to him. It's as much as to say, you see." At this point, Mr. Golyadkin's voice trembled, and 2 tears ran down his eyelashes. As Andrei Filipovich listened to Mr. Golyadkin, he was so astonished that he could not help stepping back a couple of paces. Then he looked about him uneasily. It is difficult to say how the matter would have ended. But suddenly, the door of His Excellency's room was opened, and he himself came out, accompanied by several officials. All the persons in his room followed in a string. His Excellency called to Andrei Filipovich, and walked beside him, beginning to discuss some business details. When all had set off and gone out of the room, Mr. Golyadkin woke up. Growing calmer, he took refuge under the wing of Anton Antonovich, who came last in the procession and who, Mr. Golyadkin fancied, looked stern and anxious. "I've been talking nonsense. I've been making a mess of it again. But there, never mind," he thought. "I hope at least that you, Anton Antonovich, will consent to listen to me and to enter into my position," he said quietly, in a voice that still trembled a little. "Rejected by all, I appeal to you. I am still at a loss to understand what Andrei Filipovich's word means. Anton Antonovich, explain them to me if you can." "Everything will be explained in due time," Anton Antonovich replied sternly and emphatically, and as Mr. Golyadkin fancied, with an air that gave him plainly to understand that Anton Antonovich did not wish to continue this conversation. "You will soon know all about it. You will be officially informed about everything today." "What do you mean by officially informed, Anton Antonovich? Why officially?" our hero asked timidly. "It is not for you and me to discuss what our superiors decide upon, Yakov Petrovich." "Why our superiors, Anton Antonovich?" said our hero, still more intimidated. "Why our superiors? I don't see what reason there is to trouble our superiors in the matter, Anton Antonovich. Perhaps you mean to say something about yesterday's doings, Anton Antonovich?" "Oh no, nothing to do with yesterday. There's something else amiss with you." "What is there amiss, Anton Antonovich?" "I believe, Anton Antonovich, that I have done nothing amiss." "Why, you were meeting to be sly with someone," Anton Antonovich cut in sharply, completely flabbergasting Mr. Golyadkin. Mr. Golyadkin started, and turned as white as a pocket handkerchief. "Of course, Anton Antonovich," he said, in a voice hardly audible. "If one listens to the voice of calumny and hears one's enemy's tales, without hearing what the other side has to say in its defense, then, of course, Anton Antonovich, one must suffer innocently and for nothing. To be sure, but your unseemly conduct in injuring the reputation of a virtuous young lady belonging to that benevolent, highly distinguished and well-known family who has befriended you." "What conduct do you mean, Anton Antonovich?" "What I say. Do you know anything about your praiseworthy conduct in regard to that other young lady who, though poor, is of honorable foreign extraction?" "Allow me, Anton Antonovich. If you would kindly listen to me, Anton Antonovich. With your treacherous behavior and slander of another person, you're charging another person with your own sins." What do you call that?" "I did not send him away, Anton Antonovich," said our hero, with a tremor. "And I've never instructed Petrushka, my man, to do anything of the sort. He has eaten my bread, Anton Antonovich. He has taken advantage of my hospitality," our hero added expressively and with deep emotion. So much so that his chin twitched a little, and tears were ready to start again. "That is only your talk, that he has eaten your bread," answered Anton Antonovich, somewhat offended, and there was a perfidious note in his voice which sent a pang to Mr. Golyadkin's heart. "Allow me most humbly to ask you again, Anton Antonovich, is His Excellency aware of all this business?" "Upon my word, you must let me go now, though. I've no time for you now. You'll know everything you need to know today." "Allow me, for God's sake, 1 minute, Anton Antonovich." "Tell me afterwards." "No, Anton Antonovich, you see, Anton Antonovich, only listen. I am not one for free thinking, Anton Antonovich. I shun free thinking. I am quite ready for my part, and indeed I've given up that idea." Very good, very good. I've heard that already." "No, you have not heard it, Anton Antonovich. It is something else, Anton Antonovich. It's a good thing, really, a good thing and pleasant to hear. As I've explained to you, Anton Antonovich, I admire that idea, that divine providence has created two men exactly alike, and that a benevolent government, seeing the hand of providence, provided a birth for two twins. That is a good thing, Anton Antonovich, and that I am very far from free thinking. I look upon my benevolent government as a father. I say yes, by all means. You are benevolent authorities, and you, of course. A young man must be in the service. Stand up for me, Anton Antonovich. Take my part, Anton Antonovich. I'm all right. Anton Antonovich, for God's sake, one little word more. Anton Antonovich." But by now, Anton Antonovich was far away from Mr. Golyadkin. Our hero was so bewildered and overcome by all that had happened and all that he had heard that he did not know where he was standing, what he had heard, what he had done, what was being done to him, and what was going to be done to him. With imploring eyes, he sought for Anton Antonovich in the crowd of clerks, that he might justify himself further in his eyes, and say something to him extremely high-toned and very agreeable, and creditable to himself. By degrees, however, a new light began to break upon our hero's bewildered mind. A new and awful light that revealed at once a whole perspective of hitherto unknown and utterly unsuspected circumstances. At that moment, somebody gave our bewildered hero a poke in the ribs. He looked around. Pisarenko was standing before him. "A letter, Your Honor." "Ah, you've been taken out already, my good man." "No, it was brought at 10 o'clock this morning. Sergei Mikhiev, the attendant, brought it from Mr. Vehaniev's lodging." Very good, and I'll reward you now, my dear fellow." Saying this, Mr. Golyadkin thrust the letter into his side pocket of his uniform and buttoned up every button of it. Then he looked round him, and to his surprise, found that he was now in the hall of the department, in a group of clerks crowding at the outer door, for office hours were over. Mr. Golyadkin had not only failed till that moment to observe this circumstance, but had no notion how he suddenly came to be wearing his greatcoat and goloshes, and to be holding his hat in his hand. All the clerks were motionless, in reverential expectation. The fact was that His Excellency was standing at the bottom of the stairs waiting for his carriage, which was for some reason late in arriving, and was carrying on a very interesting conversation with Andrei Filipovich and 2 councillors. At a little distance from Andrei Filipovich stood Anton Antonovich and several other clerks, who were all smiles, saying that His Excellency was graciously making a joke. The clerks who were crowded at the top of the stairs were smiling too, in expectation of His Excellency's laughing again. The only one who was not smiling was Fedosievich, the corpulent hall porter, who stood stiffly at attention, holding the handle of the door, waiting impatiently for the daily gratification that fell to his share, that is, the task of flinging one half of the door wide open with a swing of his arm, and then, with a low bow, reverentially making his way for His Excellency to pass. But the one who seemed to be more delighted than any, and to feel the most satisfaction of all, was the worthless and ungentlemanly enemy of Mr. Golyadkin. At that instant, he positively forgot all the other clerks, and even gave up tripping and pirouetting in his usual odious way. He even forgot to make up to anybody. He was all eyes and ears. He even doubled himself up strangely, no doubt in the strained effort to hear, and never took his eyes off His Excellency, and only from time to time his arms, legs, and head twitched with faintly perceptible tremors that betrayed the secret emotions of his soul. "Ah, isn't he a state?" thought our hero. "He looks like a favorite, the rascal. I should like to know how it is that he deceives society of every class. He has neither brains nor character, neither education nor feeling. He's a lucky rogue. Mercy on us. How can a man, when you think of it, come and make friends with everyone so quickly? And he'll get on. I swear the fellow will get on. The rogue will make his way. He's a lucky rascal. I should like to know, too, what he keeps whispering to everyone. What plots he is hatching with all these people, and what secrets they are talking about. Lord, have mercy on us. If only I could get on with them a little too. Say this and that and the other. Hadn't I better ask him? Tell him I won't do it again. Say, I'm at fault, and a young man must serve nowadays, Your Excellency. And I am not going to protest in any way, either. I shall bear it all with meekness and patience. So there. Is that the way to behave? Though you'll never see him through, though, the rascal. You can't reach him with anything you say. You can't hammer reason into his head. We'll make an effort, though. I may happen to hit on a good moment, so I'll make an effort." Feeling in his uneasiness, his misery, and his bewilderment that he couldn't leave things like this, that the critical moment had come, that he must explain himself to someone, our hero began to move a little towards the place where his worthless and undeserving enemy stood. But at that moment, His Excellency's long-expected carriage rolled up to the entrance. Fedosievich flung open the door and, bending double, let His Excellency pass out. All the waiting clerks streamed out toward the door, and for a moment separated Mr. Golyadkin Sr. from Mr. Golyadkin Jr. "You shan't get away," said our hero, forcing his way through the crowd, while he kept his eyes fixed upon the man he wanted. At last the crowd dispersed. Our hero felt he was free, and flew in pursuit of his enemy. Chapter 11. Mr. Golyadkin's breath failed him. He flew as though on wings after his rapidly retreating enemy. He was conscious of immense energy. Yet in spite of this terrible energy, he might confidently have said that at that moment, a humble Nyat, had a Nyat been able to exist in Petersburg at that time of the year, could very easily have knocked him down. He felt, too, that he was utterly weak again, that he was carried along by a peculiar outside force, that it was not he himself who was running, but, on the contrary, that his legs were giving way under him and refused to obey him. This all might turn out for the best, however. Whether it is for the best or not for the best, thought Mr. Golyadkin, almost breathless from running so quickly. But that the game is lost there cannot be the slightest doubt now. That I am utterly done for is certain, definite, signified, and ratified. In spite of all this, our hero felt as though he had risen from the dead, as though he had withstood a battalion, as though he had won a victory when he succeeded in clutching the overcoat of his enemy, who had already raised one foot to get into the cab he had engaged. My dear sir, he shouted to the infamous Mr. Golyadkin Jr., holding him by the button. My dear sir, I hope that you... No, please do not hope for anything, Mr. Golyadkin's heartless enemy answered evasively, standing with one foot on the step of the cab and vainly waving the other leg in the air in his efforts to get in, trying to preserve his equilibrium, and at the same time, trying with all his might to wrench his coat away from Mr. Golyadkin Sr., while the latter held on to it with all the strength that had been bestowed to him by nature. Yakov Petrovich, only 10 minutes. Excuse me, I've no time. You must admit, Yakov Petrovich. Please, Yakov Petrovich. For God's sake, Yakov Petrovich. Let us have it out, in a straightforward way. 1 little second, Yakov Petrovich. My dear fellow, I can't stay, answered Mr. Golyadkin's dishonorable enemy, with uncivil familiarity, disguised as good-natured heartiness. Another time, believe me, with my whole soul and all my heart. But now I really can't. Scoundrel, thought our hero. Yakov Petrovich, he cried, miserably. I have never been your enemy. Spiteful people have described me unjustly. I am ready, on my side. Yakov Petrovich, shall we go in together at once, Yakov Petrovich? And with all my heart, as you have so justly expressed it just now, and in straightforward, honorable language, as you have expressed it just now. Here, into this coffee-house. There the facts will explain themselves. They will really, Yakov Petrovich. Then everything will certainly explain itself. Into the coffee-house. Very good, I am not against it. Let us go into the coffee-house on one condition only, my dear. On one condition. That these things shall be cleared up. We will have it out, darling, said Mr. Golyadkin Jr., getting out of the cab and shamelessly slapping our hero on the shoulder. You friend of my heart, for your sake, Yakov Petrovich, I am ready to go by the back street, as you were pleased to observe so aptly on one occasion, Yakov Petrovich. Why, what a rogue he is. Upon my word, he does just what he likes with one. Mr. Golyadkin's false friend went on, falling upon himself and cajoling him with a little smile. The coffee-house which the two Golyadkins entered stood some distance away from the main street, and was, at the moment, quite empty. A rather stout German woman made her appearance behind the counter. Mr. Golyadkin and his unworthy enemy went into the second room, where a puffy-looking boy with a closely shaven head was busy with a bundle of chips at the stove, trying to revive the smoldering fire. At Mr. Golyadkin Jr.'s request, chocolate was served. And a sweet little lady tart, said Mr. Golyadkin Jr., with a sly wink at Mr. Golyadkin Sr. Our hero blushed and was silent. Oh yes, I forgot. I beg your pardon. I know your taste. We are sweet on charming little Germans, sir. You and I are sweet on charming and agreeable little Germans, aren't we, you upright soul? We take their lodgings, we seduce their morals. They win our hearts with their beer soup and their milk soup. And we give them notes of different sorts. That's what we do, you fabulous, you deceiver. All this Mr. Golyadkin Jr. said, making an unworthy, though villainously artful allusion to a certain personage of the female sex, while he fawned upon our hero, smiling at him with an amiable air, with a deceitful show of being delighted with him and pleased to have had him. Seeing that Mr. Golyadkin Sr. was by no means so stupid, and deficient in breeding and the manners of good society, as to believe in him, the infamous man resolved to change his tactics and to make a more open attack upon him. After uttering his disgusting speech, the false Mr. Golyadkin ended by slapping the real and substantial Mr. Golyadkin on the shoulder, with a revolting effrontery and familiarity. Not content with that, he began playing pranks utterly unfit for well-bred society. He took it into his head to repeat his old, nauseous trick, that is, regardless of the resistance and faint cries of the indignant Mr. Golyadkin Sr., he pinched the latter on the cheek. At the spectacle of such depravity, our hero boiled within, but was silent. Only for the time, however. "That is the talk of my enemies," he answered at last, in a trembling voice, prudently restraining himself. At the same time, our hero looked uneasily towards the door. The fact was that Mr. Golyadkin Jr. seemed in excellent spirits, and ready for all sorts of little jokes, unseemly in a public place, and, speaking generally, not permissible by the laws of good manners, especially in well-bred society. "Oh well, in that case, as you please," Mr. Golyadkin Jr. gravely responded to our hero's thoughts, setting down upon the table the empty cup which he had gulped down with unseemly greed. "Well, there's no need for me to stay long with you, however. Well, how are you getting on now, Yakov Petrovich?" "There's only one thing I can tell you, Yakov Petrovich," our hero answered, with sang-froid and dignity. "I've never been your enemy." "Oh, what about Petrushka?" "Petrushka is his name, I fancy." "Yes, it is Petrushka." "Well, how is he?" "Well, the same as ever?" "He's the same as ever too, Yakov Petrovich," answered Mr. Golyadkin Sr., somewhat amazed. "I don't know, Yakov Petrovich. From my standpoint, from a candid, honorable standpoint, Yakov Petrovich, you must admit, Yakov Petrovich." "Yes, but you know yourself, Yakov Petrovich," Mr. Golyadkin Jr. answered in a soft and expressive voice, so, posing falsely as a sorrowful man, overcome with remorse and deserving compassion. "You know yourself as we live in difficult time. I appeal to you, Yakov Petrovich. You are an intelligent man, and your reflections are just," Mr. Golyadkin Jr. said in conclusion, flattering Mr. Golyadkin Sr. in an abject way. "Life is not a game. You know yourself, Yakov Petrovich," Mr. Golyadkin Jr. added, with vast significance, assuming the character of a clever and learned man, who is capable of passing judgments on lofty subjects. "For my part, Yakov Petrovich," our hero answered warmly. "For my part, scorning to be roundabout and speaking boldly and openly, using straightforward, honorable language and putting the whole matter on an honorable basis, I tell you I can openly and honorably assert, Yakov Petrovich, that I am absolutely pure, and that, you know it yourself, Yakov Petrovich, the error is mutual. It may all be the world's judgment, the opinion of the Slavish crowd. I speak openly, Yakov Petrovich. Everything is possible. I will say too, Yakov Petrovich, if you judge it in this way, if you look at the matter from a lofty, noble point of view, then I boldly say, without false shame, I will say, Yakov Petrovich, it will positively be a pleasure to me to discover that I have been in error. It will positively be a pleasure for me to recognize it. You know yourself you are an intelligent man, and, what is more, you are a gentleman. Without shame, without false shame, I am ready to recognize it," he wound up with dignity and nobility. "It is the decree of destiny, Yakov Petrovich. But let us drop all this," said Mr. Golyadkin Jr. "Let us rather use the brief moment of our meeting for a more pleasant and profitable conversation, as is only suitable between two colleagues in the service. Really, I have not succeeded in saying 2 words to you all this time. I am not to blame for that, Yakov Petrovich. "Nor I," answered our hero warmly. "Nor I, either. My heart tells me, Yakov Petrovich, that I am not to blame in all this matter. Let us blame fate for all this, Yakov Petrovich," added Mr. Golyadkin Sr., in a quick, consolatory tone of voice. His voice began little by little to soften and to quaver. "Well, how are you in health?" said the sinner in a sweet voice. "I have a little cough," answered our hero, even more sweetly. "Take care of yourself. There is so much illness going about. You may easily get quinsy. For my part, I confess I've begun to wrap myself up in flannel." "One may indeed, Yakov Petrovich, very easily get quinsy," our hero pronounced after a brief silence. "Yakov Petrovich, I see that I have made a mistake. I remember with softened feelings those happy moments which we were so fortunate as to spend together, under my poor, though I venture to say, hospitable roof. In your letter, however, you wrote something very different," said Mr. Golyadkin Jr., reproachfully, speaking on this occasion, though only on this occasion, quite justly. "Yakov Petrovich, I was in error. I see clearly now that I was in error in my unhappy letter too. Yakov Petrovich, I am ashamed to look at you, Yakov Petrovich. You won't believe. Give me that letter that I may tear it to pieces before your eyes, Yakov Petrovich. And if that is utterly impossible, I entreat you to read it the other way before, precisely the other way before. That is, expressly with a friendly intention, giving the opposite sense to the whole letter. I was in error. Forgive me, Yakov Petrovich. I was grievously in error, Yakov Petrovich." "You say so?" Mr. Golyadkin's perfidious friend inquired, rather casually and indifferent. "I say that I was quite in error, Yakov Petrovich, and that for my part, quite without false shame, I am." "Ah, well, that's all right. That's a nice thing your being in error," answered Mr. Golyadkin Jr. "I even had an idea, Yakov Petrovich," our candid hero answered in a gentlemanly way, completely failing to observe the horrible perfidy of his deceitful enemy. "I even had an idea that here were two people created exactly alike." "Ah, is that your idea?" At this point, the notoriously worthless Mr. Golyadkin took up his hat. Still failing to observe his treachery, Mr. Golyadkin Sr., too, got up and, with a noble, simple-hearted smile to his false friend, tried in his innocence to be friendly to him, to encourage him, and in that way, to form a new friendship with him. "Goodbye, Your Excellency," Mr. Golyadkin Jr. called out suddenly. Our hero started, noticing in his enemy's face something positively Bacchanalian, and, solely to get rid of him, put 2 fingers into the unprincipled man's outstretched hand. But then his enemy's shamelessness passed all bounds. Seizing the 2 fingers of Mr. Golyadkin's hand and, at first pressing them, the worthless fellow on the spot, before Mr. Golyadkin's eyes, had the effrontery to repeat the shameful joke of the morning. The limit of human patience was exhausted. He had just hidden in his pocket the handkerchief with which he had wiped his fingers, when Mr. Golyadkin Sr. recovered from the shock, and dashed after him into the next room, into which his irreconcilable foe had, in his usual way, hastened to decamp. As though perfectly innocent, he was standing at the corner eating pies, and with perfect composure, like a virtuous man, was making polite remarks to the German woman behind the counter. "I can't go into it before ladies," thought our hero, and he, too, went up to the counter, so agitated that he hardly knew what he was doing. "The tart is certainly not bad. What do you think?" Mr. Golyadkin Jr. began upon its unseemly sallies again, reckoning, no doubt, upon Mr. Golyadkin's infinite patience. The stout German, for her part, looked at both the visitors with poetry, vacant-looking eyes, smiling affably and evidently not understanding Russian. Our hero flushed red as fire at the words of the unabashed Mr. Golyadkin Jr., and, unable to control himself, rushed at him with the evident intention of tearing him to pieces and finishing him off completely. But Mr. Golyadkin Jr., in his usual mean way, was already far off. He took flight, he was already on the steps. It need hardly be said that, after the first moment of stupefaction with which our hero was naturally overcome, he recovered himself and went at full speed after his insulting enemy, who had already got into a cab, whose driver was obviously in collusion with him. But at that very instant, the stout German, seeing both her customers make off, shrieked and rang her bell with all her might. Our hero was on the point of flight, but he turned back, and without asking for change, flew her money for himself and for the shameless man, who had left without paying, and although thus delayed, he succeeded in catching up with his enemy. Hanging on to the side of the cab with all the force bestowed on him by nature, our hero was carried for some time along the street, clambering upon the vehicle, while Mr. Golyadkin Jr. did his utmost to dislodge him. Meanwhile, the cabman, with whips, with reins, with kicks and with shouts, urged on his exhausted nag, who quite unexpectedly dropped into a gallop, biting at the bit and kicking with his hind legs in a horrid way. At last our enemy, and with his back to the driver, his knees touching the knees, and his right hand clutching the very shabby fur collar of his depraved and exasperated foe. Our heroes were borne along for some time in silence. Our hero could scarcely breathe. It was a bad road, and he was jolted at every step and in peril of breaking his neck. Moreover, his exasperated foe still refused to acknowledge himself vanquished, and was trying to shove him off into the mud. To complete the unpleasantness of his position, the weather was detestable. The snow was falling in heavy flakes, and doing its utmost to creep under the unfashioned overcoat of the genuine Mr. Golyadkin. It was foggy, and nothing could be seen. It was difficult to tell through what street and in what direction they were being taken. It seemed to Mr. Golyadkin that what was happening to him was somehow familiar. He tried to remember whether he had had a presentiment of it the day before. In a dream, for instance. At last his wretchedness reached the utmost pitch of agony. Leaning upon his merciless opponent, he was beginning to cry out. But his cries died away upon his lips. There was a moment when Mr. Golyadkin forgot everything, and made up his mind that all this was of no consequence, and that it was all nothing, that it was happening in some inexplicable manner, and that, therefore, to protest was effort thrown away. But suddenly, and almost at the same instant that our hero was drawing this conclusion, an unexpected jolt gave quite a new turn to the affair. Mr. Golyadkin fell off the cab like a sack of flour, and rolled on the ground, quite correctly recognizing, at the moment of his fall, that his excitement had been very inappropriate. Jumping up at last, he saw that they had arrived somewhere. The cab was standing in the middle of some courtyard, and from the first glance, our hero noticed that it was the courtyard of the house in which was Osify Ivanovich's flat. At the same instant, he noticed that his enemy was mounting the steps, probably on his way to Osify Ivanovich's. In indescribable misery, he was about to pursue his enemy, but, fortunately for himself, prudently thought better of it. Not forgetting to pay the cabman, Mr. Golyadkin ran with all his might along the street, regardless of where he was going. The snow was falling heavily as before. As before, it was muggy, wet, and dark. Our hero did not walk, but flew, coming into collision with everyone on the way. Men, women, and children. About him and after him, he heard frightened voices, squeals, screams. But Mr. Golyadkin seemed unconscious and would not pay heed to anything. He came to himself, however, on Semyonovsky Bridge, and then only succeeded in tripping against and upsetting two peasant women and the wares they were selling, and tumbling over them. "That's no matter," thought Mr. Golyadkin. "That can easily be set right," and felt in his pocket at once, intending to make up for the cakes, apples, nuts and various trifles he had scattered with a rouble. Suddenly a new light dawned upon Mr. Golyadkin. In his pocket he felt the letter given him in the morning by the clerk. Remembering that there was a tavern he knew close by, he ran to it without a moment's delay, settled himself at a little table lighted up by a tallow candle, and, taking no notice of anything, regardless of the waiter who came to ask for his orders, broke the seal and began reading the following letter, which completely astounded him. You noble man, who are suffering for my sake, and will be dear to my heart forever. I am suffering, I am perishing. Save me. The slanderer, the intriguer, notorious for the immorality of his tendencies, has entangled me in his snares, and I am undone. I am lost. But he is abhorrent to me, while you— They have separated us. They have intercepted my letters to you. And all this has been the vicious man who has taken advantage of his one good quality, his likeness to you. A man can always be plain in appearance, yet fascinate by his intelligence, his strong feelings, and his agreeable manners. I am ruined. I am being married against my will, and the chief part in this intrigue is taken by my parent, benefactor and civil counsellor, Alcivy Ivanovitch, no doubt desirous of securing me a place and relations in well-bred society. But I have made up my mind, and I protest by all the powers bestowed to me by nature. Be waiting for me with a carriage at 9 o'clock this evening at the window of Alcivy Ivanovitch's flat. We are having another ball, and a handsome lieutenant is coming. I will come out and we will fly. Moreover, there are other government offices in which one can be of service to one's country. In any case, remember, my friend, that innocence is strong in its very innocence. Farewell. Wait with the carriage at the entrance. I shall throw myself into the protection of your arms at 2 o'clock in the night. Yours till death, Clara Osifyevna. After reading the letter, our hero remained for some minutes as though petrified. In terrible anxiety, in terrible agitation, white as a sheet, with the letter in his hand, he walked several times up and down the room. To complete the unpleasantness of his position, though our hero failed to observe it, he was at that moment the object of the exclusive attention of everyone in the room. His gesticulating with both hands, perhaps some enigmatic words unconsciously addressed to the air. Probably all this prejudiced Mr. Golyadkin in the opinion of the customers, and even the waiter began to look at him suspiciously. Coming to himself, Mr. Golyadkin noticed that he was standing in the middle of the room, and was in an almost unseemly, discourteous manner, staring at an old man of the very respectable appearance who, having dined and said grace before the ikon, had sat down again and fixed his eyes upon Mr. Golyadkin. Our hero looked vaguely about him, and noticed that everyone, actually everyone, was looking at him with a hostile and suspicious air. All at once, a retired military official in a red collar asked loudly for the police news. Our hero started and turned crimson. He happened to look down, and saw that he was in such a disorderly attire as he would not have worn even at home, much less in a public place. His boots, his trousers, and the whole of his left side were covered in mud. The trouser strap was torn off his right foot, and his coat was even torn in many places. In extreme misery, our hero went up to the table at which he had read the letter, and saw that the attendant was coming up to him with a strange and imprudently peremptory expression of face. Utterly disconcerted and crestfallen, our hero began to look about the table at which he was now standing. On the table stood a dirt plate, left there from somebody's dinner, a soiled table napkin and a knife, fork and spoon that had just been used. "Who's been having dinner?" thought our hero. "Can it have been I? Anything is possible. I must have had dinner without noticing it. What am I to do?" Raising his eyes, Mr. Golyadkin saw beside him the waiter who was about to address him. "How much is my bill, my lad?" our hero inquired in a trembling voice. A loud laugh sounded round Mr. Golyadkin. The waiter himself grinned. Mr. Golyadkin realized that he had blundered again, and had done something dreadfully stupid. He was overcome by confusion, and to avoid standing there with nothing to do, he put his hand in his pocket to get out his handkerchief, but to the indescribable amazement of himself and all surrounding him, he pulled out instead of his handkerchief the bottle of medicine which Christian Ivanovitch had prescribed to him 4 days earlier. "Get the medicine at the same chemist's," floated through Mr. Golyadkin's brain. Suddenly he started and almost cried out in horror. A new light dawned. The dark, reddish, and repulsive liquid had a sinister gleam to Mr. Golyadkin's eyes. The bottle dropped from his hands and was instantly smashed. Our hero cried out and stepped back a pace to avoid the spilled medicine. He was trembling in every limb, and drops of sweat came onto his brow and temples. "So my life is in danger." Meanwhile, there was a stir, a commotion in the room. Everyone surrounded Mr. Golyadkin. Everyone talked to Mr. Golyadkin. Some even caught hold of Mr. Golyadkin. But our hero was dumb and motionless, seeing nothing, hearing nothing, feeling nothing. At last, as though tearing himself from the place, he rushed out of the tavern, pushing away all and each who tried to detain him. Almost unconscious, he got into the first cab that passed him and drove to his flat. In the entry of his flat, he met Mikhiev, an attendant from the office, with an official envelope in his hand. "I know, my good man, I know all about it," our exhausted hero answered, in a weak, miserable voice. "It's official." The envelope did, in fact, contain instructions to Mr. Golyadkin, signed by Andrei Filipovich, to give up the business in his hands to Ivan Semyonovich. Taking the envelope and giving 10 kopecks to the man, Mr. Golyadkin went up to his flat and saw that Petrushka was collecting all his odds and ends, all his things into a heap, evidently intending to abandon Mr. Golyadkin and move to the flat of Karolina Ivanova, who had enticed him to take the place of Yastafi. Chapter 12. Petrushka came in staggering, with a strangely casual manner and an air of vulgar triumph on his face. It was evident that he had some idea in his head, that he felt thoroughly within his rights, and he looked like an unconcerned spectator, that is, as though he were anybody's servant rather than Mr. Golyadkin's. "I say, you know, my good lad," our hero began, breathlessly. "What time is it?" Without speaking, Petrushka went behind his partition, then returned, and in a rather independent tone, announced that it was nearly 7:30. "Well, that's all right, my lad. That's all right. Come, you see, my boy. Allow me to tell you, my good lad, that everything, I fancy, is at an end between us." Petrushka said nothing. "Well, now as everything is over between us, tell me openly, as a friend, where you have been." "Where I've been?" "To see good people, sir." "I know, my good lad, I know. I have always been satisfied with you, and I give you a character. Well, what are you doing with them now?" "Why, sir, you know yourself. We all know a decent man won't teach you any harm." "I know, my dear fellow, I know. Nowadays good people are rare, my lad. Prize them, my friend." "Well, how are they?" "To be sure they. Only I can't serve you any longer, sir, as your honor must know." "I know, my dear fellow. I know your zeal and devotion. I have seen it all, my lad. I've noticed it. I respect you, my friend. I respect a good and honest man, even though he's a lackey." "Why, yes, to be sure. The likes of us, of course, as you know yourself, are as good as anybody. That's so. We all know, sir, that there's no getting on without a good man." Very well, my boy. I feel it. Come, here's your money and here's your character. Now we'll kiss and say goodbye, brother. Come now, my lad, I'll ask one service of you, one last service," said Mr. Golyadkin in a solemn voice. "You see, my dear boy, all sorts of things happen. Sorrow is concealed in gilded palaces, and there's no escaping it. You know, my boy, I've always been kind to you, my boy." Petrushka remained mute. "I believe I've always been kind to you, my dear fellow. Come, how much linen have we now, my dear boy?" "Well, it's all there. Linen shirt 6, 3 pairs of socks, 4 shirt fronts, flannel vests, of under linen 2 sets. You know all that yourself. I've got nothing of yours, sir. I look after my master's belongings, sir. I am like that, sir. We all know. And I've never been guilty of anything of the sort, sir. You know yourself, sir. I trust you, my lad, I trust you. I didn't mean that. You know, my lad. I tell you what. To be sure, sir, we know that already." "Why, when I used to be in the service of General Stolniakov's. I lost the trace through the families going away to Saratov. They've an estate there. I didn't mean that, my lad. I didn't mean that. Don't think anything of the sort, my dear fellow. To be sure, it's easy, as you know yourself, sir, to take away the character of folks like us. And I've always given satisfaction. Ministers, generals, senators, courts. I've served them all. I've been at Prince Svinschatkin's, at Colonel Pereborkin's, at General Nedobarov's. They've all gone away, too. They have gone to their property. As we all know. Yes, my lad, very good, my lad, very good. And now I'm going away, my friend. A different path lies before each man. No one can tell what road he may take. Come, my lad, put out my clothes now, lay out my uniform too. And my other trousers, my sheets, quilts, and pillows. Am I to pack them all in the bag? Yes, my lad, yes, the bag, please. Who knows what may happen to us? Come, my dear boy, you can go and find a carriage. A carriage? Yes, my lad, a carriage. A roomy one, and take it by the hour. And don't imagine anything. Are you planning to go far away, sir? I don't know, my lad. I don't know that either. I think you had better pack my feather bed, too. What do you think, my lad? I am relying on you, my dear fellow. Is your honor setting off at once? Yes, my friend, yes. Circumstances have turned out so. So it is, my dear fellow, so it is. To be sure, sir. When we were in the regiment, the same thing happened to the lieutenant. They eloped from a country gentleman's. Eloped? How, my dear fellow? Yes, sir, eloped. And they were married in another house. Everything was got ready beforehand. There was a hue and cry after them. The late prince took their part, and so it was all settled. They were married, but... How is it, my dear fellow? How do you come to know, my boy? Why, to be sure. The earth is full of rumors, sir. We know, sir, we've all... To be sure, sir, there's no one without sin. Only I tell you now, sir, let me speak plainly and vulgarly, sir, since it has come to this. I must tell you, sir, you have an enemy. You've a rival, sir, a powerful rival, so there. I know, my dear fellow, I know. You know yourself, my dear fellow. So you see, I'm relying upon you. What are we to do now, my friend? How do you advise me? Well, sir, if you are in that way now, if you've come, so to say, to such a pass, sir, you'll have to make some purchases, sir. Say some sheets, pillows, another feather bed, a double one, a good quilt. Here at the neighbour's downstairs. She's a shopkeeper, sir. She has good fox fur coat, so you might look at it and buy it. You might have a look at it at once. You'll need it now, sir. It's a good coat, sir. Satin lined with fox. Very good, my lad, very good. I agree. I rely upon you. I rely upon you entirely. A cloak by all means, if necessary. Only make haste, make haste. For God's sake, make haste. I'll buy the cloak, only please make haste. It will soon be 8 o'clock. Make haste, for God's sake, my dear lad. Hurry up, my lad. Petrushka ran up to gather together a bundle of linen, pillows, quilt, sheets, and all sorts of odds and ends, tied them up, and rushed headlong out of the room. Meanwhile, Mr. Golyadkin seized the letter once more, but he could not read it. Clutching his devoted head, he leaned against the wall in a state of stupefaction. He could not think of anything. He could not do anything, either, and could not even tell what was happening to him. At last, seeing that time was passing, and neither Petrushka nor the fur cloak had made their appearance, Mr. Golyadkin made up his mind to go himself. Opening the door into the entry, he heard below noise, talk, disputing and scuffling. Several of the women of the neighboring flats were shouting, talking, and protesting about something. Mr. Golyadkin knew what. Petrushka's voice was heard. Then there was a sound of footsteps. My goodness, they'll bring all the world in here, moaned Mr. Golyadkin, wringing his hands in despair and rushing back into his room. Running back into his room, He fell almost senseless on the sofa with his face in the pillow. After lying a minute in this way, he jumped up and, without waiting for Petrushka, he put on his goloshes, his hat and his greatcoat, snatched up his papers, and ran headlong downstairs. "Nothing is wanted, nothing, my dear fellow. I will manage myself, everything myself. I don't need you for the time, and meantime, things have taken a better turn, perhaps." Mr. Golyadkin muttered to Petrushka, meeting him on the stairs. Then he ran out into the yard, away from the house. There was a faintness in his heart. He had not yet made up his mind what was his position, what he was to do, how he was to act in the present critical position. "Yes, how am I to act? Lord have mercy on me. And that all this should happen," he cried out at last in despair, tottering along the street at random. "That all this must needs happen. Why, but for this, but for just this, everything would have been put right, at one stroke, at one skillful, vigorous, firm stroke, it would have been set right. I would have my finger cut off to set right. And I know, indeed, how it should have been settled. This is how it would have been managed. I'd have gone, on the spot, said how it was. With your permission, sir, I'm neither here nor there in it. Things aren't done like that, I would say. My dear sir, things aren't done like that. There's no accepting an impostor in our office. An impostor, my dear sir, is a man who is worthless and of no service to his country. Do you understand that? Do you understand that, my dear sir? I should say, that's how it would be. But no, after all, things are not like that. Not a bit like that. I am talking nonsense, like a fool. A suicidal fool. It's not like that at all, you suicidal fool. This is how things are done, though, you profligate man. Well, what am I to do with myself now? What am I fit for now? Come, what are you fit for now, for instance? You, Golyadkin, you worthless fellow. Well, what now? I must get a carriage. Hire a carriage and bring it here, says she. We should get our feet wet without a carriage, says she. And who could ever have thought it? Fie, fie, a young lady of virtuous behavior. Well, well, the girl we all thought so much of. You've distinguished yourself, madam. There's no doubt of that. You've distinguished yourself. And it all comes from immoral education. And now that I have looked into it and seen through it all, I see that it is due to nothing else but immorality. Instead of looking after her as a child, and the rod at times, they stuff her with sweets and dainties, and the old man is always doting over her, saying, "My dear, my love, my beauty," saying, "We'll marry you to account." And now she has come forward herself and shown her cards, as though to say that's her little game. Instead of keeping her at home as a child, they sent her to boarding school, to a French madame, an émigrée, a Madame Faublas or something, and she learned all sorts of things at the Madame Faublas. And this is how it always turns out. "Come," says she, "and be happy. Be in a carriage," she says, "at such a time, under the windows, and sing a sentimental serenade in a Spanish style. I await you, and I know you love me, and we will fly together and live in a hut. But the fact is, it's impossible. Since it has come to that, madame, it's impossible. It is against the law to abduct an innocent, respectable girl from her parents' roof without their sanction. And if you come to that, why, what for, and what need is there to do it? Come, she should marry a suitable person, the man marked out by destiny, and that would be the end of it. But I'm in the government service. I might lose my berth through it. I might be arrested for it, madame. I tell you that, if you did not know it. It's that German woman's doing. She's at the bottom of it all, the witch. She cooked the whole kettle of fish. For they've slandered a man. For they've invented a bit of womanish gossip about him. A regular performance by the advice of Andrei Filipovich. That's what it came from. Otherwise, how could Petrushka be mixed up in it? What has he to do with it? What need for the rogue to be in it? No, I cannot, madame. I cannot possibly, not on any account. No, madame, this time you really must excuse me. It's all your doing, madam. It's not all the German woman's doing. It's not the witch's doing at all, but simply yours. For the witch is a good woman, for the witch is not to blame in any way. It's your fault, madame. It's you who are to blame, let me tell you. I shall not be charged of a crime through you, madame. A man might be ruined. A man might lose sight of himself, and not be able to restrain himself. A wedding, indeed. And how is that all going to end? And how will it all be arranged? I would give a great deal to know all that. So our hero reflected in his despair. Coming to himself suddenly, he observed that he was standing somewhere in Litany Street. The weather was awful. It was a thaw. Snow and rain were falling. Just as at that memorable time when, at the dread hour of midnight, all Mr. Golyadkin's troubles had begun. This is a nice night for a journey, thought Mr. Golyadkin, looking at the weather. It's dead all round. Good Lord, where am I to find a carriage, for instance? I believe there's something black there at the corner. We'll see. We'll investigate. Lord, have mercy on us. Our hero went on, bending his weak and tottering steps in the direction in which he saw something that looked like a cab. No, I know what I'll do. I'll go straight and fall on my knees, if I can, and humbly beg, saying, I put my fate in your hands, in the hands of my superiors, saying, Your Excellency, be a protector and a benefactor. And then I'll say this and that, and explain how it is and that it is an unlawful act. Do not destroy me. I look upon you as a father. Do not abandon me. Save my dignity, my honor, my name, my reputation. And save me from a miscreant, a vicious man. He's another person, Your Excellency, and I'm another person too. He's apart, and I am myself by myself too. I am really myself by myself, Your Excellency. Really myself by myself. That's what I shall say. I cannot be like him. Change him, dismiss him, give orders for him, to be changed and a godless, licentious impersonation to be suppressed. That it may not be an example to others, Your Excellency. I look upon you as a father. Those in authority over us, our benefactors and protectors, are bound, of course, to encourage such impulses. There's something chivalrous about it. I shall say, I look upon you, my benefactor and superior, as a father, and trust my fate to you, and I will not say anything against it. I put myself in your hands, and retire from the affair myself. That's what I should say. Well, my man, are you a cabman? Yes, I want a cab for the evening. And does your honor want to go far? For the evening, for the evening. Wherever I have to go, my man, wherever I have to go. Does your honor want to drive out of town? Yes, my friend, out of town perhaps. I don't quite know myself yet. I can't tell you for certain, my man. Maybe you will see it all be settled for the best. We all know, my friend. Yes, sir, of course we all know. Please God it may. Yes, my friend, yes. Thank you, my dear fellow. Come, what's your fare, my good man? Do you want to set off at once? Yes, at once. That is, no, you must wait at a certain place. A little while, not long, you'll have to wait. Well, if you hire me for the whole time, I couldn't ask less than 6 rubles for weather like this. Oh, very well, my friend. And I thank you, my dear fellow. So come, you can take me now, my good man. Get in. Allow me. I'll put it straight a bit. Now will your honor get in? Where shall I drive? To the Ishmaelovsky Bridge, my friend. The driver plumped down on the box. With difficulty, roused his pair of lean nags from the trough of hay, and was setting off for Ishmaelovsky Bridge. But suddenly, Mr. Golyadkin pulled the cord, stopped the cab, and besought him in an imploring voice not to drive to Ishmaelovsky Bridge, but to turn back to another street. The driver turned into another street, and then, minutes later, Mr. Golyadkin's newly hired equipage was standing before the house in which His Excellency had a flat. Mr. Golyadkin got out of the carriage, begged the driver to be sure to wait, and with a sinking heart, ran upstairs to the 3rd story and pulled the bell. The door was opened, and our hero found himself in the entry of His Excellency's flat. "Is His Excellency graciously pleased to be at home?" said Mr. Golyadkin, addressing the man who opened the door. "What do you want?" asked the servant, scrutinizing Mr. Golyadkin from head to foot. My friend, I am Golyadkin, the titular councillor. Golyadkin, to say, something or other, to explain. You must wait, you cannot. My friend, I cannot wait. My business is important. It's business that admits no delay. But from whom have you come? Have you brought papers? No, my friend, I am on my own account. Announce me, my friend. Say something or other. Explain. I'll reward you, my good man. I cannot. His Excellency is not at home. He has visitors. Come at 10 o'clock in the morning. Take in my name, my good man. I can't wait. It is impossible. You'll have to answer for it, my good man. Why, go and announce him. What's the matter with you? Want to save your shoe leather? Said another lackey who was lolling on the beach and had not uttered a word until then. Shoe leather? I was told not to show anyone up. You know, their time is the morning. Announce him. Have you lost your tongue? I'll announce him all right. I've not lost my tongue. It's not my orders. I've told you, it's not my orders. Walk inside. Mr. Golyadkin went into the outermost room. There was a clock on the table. He glanced at it. It was 8:30. His heart ached within him. Already he wanted to turn back, but at that very moment, the footman standing at the door of the next room had already boomed out Mr. Golyadkin's name. Oh, what lungs, thought our hero in indescribable misery. Why, you ought to have said, he has come most humbly and meekly to make an explanation. Something. Be graciously pleased to see him. Now the whole business is ruined. All my hopes are scattered to the winds. But, however, never mind. There was no time to think, moreover. The lackey, returning, said, Please walk in, and led Mr. Golyadkin into the study. When our hero went in, he felt as though he were blinded, for he could see nothing at all. But 3 or 4 fingers seemed flitting before his eyes. Oh yes, they are the visitors, flashed through Mr. Golyadkin's mind. At last our hero could distinguish clearly the star on the black coat of His Excellency, then by degrees advanced to seeing the black coat, and at last gained the power of complete vision. What is it? Said a familiar voice above Mr. Golyadkin. The titular councillor, Golyadkin, Your Excellency. Well? I have come to make an explanation. How? What? Why, yes, this is how it is. I've come for an explanation, Your Excellency. But you? But who are you? Mr. Golyadkin, Your Excellency, a titular councillor. Well, what is it you want? Why, this is how it is. I look upon you as a father. I retire. Defend me from my enemy. What's this? We all know. What do we all know? Mr. Golyadkin was silent. His chin began twitching a little. Well? I thought it was chivalrous, Your Excellency. There's something chivalrous in it, I said, and I look upon my superior as a father. This is what I thought. Protect me. I earfully beg that such impulses ought to be encouraged. His Excellency turned away. Our hero for some minutes could distinguish nothing. There was a weight on his chest. His breathing was labored. He did not know where he was standing. He felt ashamed and sad. God knows what followed. Recovering himself, our hero noticed that His Excellency was talking with his guests, and seemed to be briskly and emphatically discussing something with them. One of the visitors Mr. Golyadkin recognized at once. This was Andrei Filipovich. He knew no one else. Yet there was another person that seemed familiar. A tall, thick-set figure, middle-aged, possessed of very thick eyebrows and whiskers, and a significantly sharp expression. On his chest was an order, and in his mouth a cigar. This gentleman was smoking and nodding significantly without taking the cigar out of his mouth, glancing from time to time at Mr. Golyadkin. Mr. Golyadkin felt awkward. He turned away his eyes and immediately saw another strange visitor. Through a door which our hero had taken for a looking-glass, just as he had done once before, he made his appearance. We know who. A very intimate friend and acquaintance of Mr. Golyadkin's. Mr. Golyadkin Jr. had actually been till then in a little room close by, hurriedly writing something. Now, apparently, he was needed, and came in with papers under his arm, went up to His Excellency, and while waiting for exclusive attention to be paid him, succeeded very adroitly in putting his spoke into the talk and consultation, taking his place a little behind Andrew Filipovich's back, and partly screening him from the gentleman smoking the cigar. Apparently, Mr. Golyadkin Jr. took an intense interest in the conversation, to which he was listening now in a gentlemanly way, nodding his head, fidgeting with his feet, smiling, continually looking at His Excellency, as it were beseeching him with his eyes to let him put his word in. "This scoundrel," thought Mr. Golyadkin, and involuntarily he took a step forward. At this moment, His Excellency turned round, and came rather hesitatingly towards Mr. Golyadkin. "Well, that's all right. That's all right. Well, run along now. I'll look into your case and give orders for you to be taken." At this point, His Excellency glanced at the gentleman with the thick whiskers. The latter nodded in assent. Mr. Golyadkin felt and distinctly understood that they were taking him for something different, and not looking at him in the proper light at all. "In one way or another, I must explain myself," he thought. "I must say, this is how it is, Your Excellency." At this point in his perplexity, he dropped his eyes to the floor, and to his great astonishment, he saw a good-sized patch of something white on His Excellency's boots. "Can there be a hole in them?" thought Mr. Golyadkin. Mr. Golyadkin was, however, soon convinced that His Excellency's boots were not split, but were only shining brilliantly, a phenomenon fully explained by the fact that they were patent leather and highly polished. "It is what they call blick," thought our hero. "The term is used particularly in artist studios. In other places, such a reflected light is called a rib of light." At this point, Mr. Golyadkin raised his eyes and saw that the time had come to speak, for things might end badly. Our hero took a step forward. "I say this is how it is, Your Excellency," he said, "and there's no accepting impostors nowadays." His Excellency made no answer, but rang the bell violently. Our hero took another step forward. "He is a vile, vicious man, Your Excellency," said our hero, beside himself and faint with terror, though he still pointed boldly and resolutely at his unworthy twin, who was fidgeting about near His Excellency. "I say this is how it is, and I am alluding to a well-known person." There was a general sensation at Mr. Golyadkin's words. Andrei Filipovich and the gentleman with the cigar nodded their heads. His Excellency impatiently tugged at his bell to summon his servants. At this point, Mr. Golyadkin Jr. came forward in his turn. "Your Excellency," he said, "I humbly beg permission to speak." There was something very resolute in Mr. Golyadkin Jr.'s voice. Everything showed that he felt himself completely in the right. "Allow me to ask you," he began again, anticipating His Excellency's reply in his eagerness, and this time addressing Mr. Golyadkin. "Allow me to ask you, in whose presence are you making this explanation? Before whom are you standing? In whose room are you?" Mr. Golyadkin Jr. was in a state of extraordinary excitement, flushing and glowing with wrath and indignation. There were positively tears in his eyes. A lackey, appearing in the doorway, roared at the top of his voice the name of some new arrivals, the Basavriukovs. "A good aristocratic name, hailing from Little Russia," thought Mr. Golyadkin, and at that moment he felt someone lay a very friendly hand on his back. Then a second was laid on his back. Mr. Golyadkin's infamous twin was tripping about in front, leading the way, and our hero saw clearly that he was being led to the big doors of the room. Just as it was at Olsevy Ivanovich's, he thought, and he found himself in the hall. Looking round, he saw beside him 2 of the Excellency's lackeys and his twin. The greatcoat, The greatcoat, the greatcoat, the greatcoat, my friend. The greatcoat of my best friend, whispered the depraved man, snatching the coat from one of the servants, and by way of a nasty and ungentlemanly joke, flinging it straight at Mr. Golyadkin's head. Extracting himself from under his coat, Mr. Golyadkin distinctly heard the two lackeys snicker. But without listening to anything, or paying attention to it, he went out of the hall, and found himself on the lighted stairs. Mr. Golyadkin Jr. followed him. "Goodbye, Your Excellency," he shouted after Mr. Golyadkin Sr. "Scoundrel!" our hero exclaimed, beside himself. "Well, scoundrel, then. Depraved man! Well, depraved man, then," answered Mr. Golyadkin's unworthy enemy, and with his characteristic baseness, he looked down from the top of the stairs, straight into Mr. Golyadkin's face, as though begging him to go on. Our hero spat with indignation, and ran out of the front door. He was so shattered, so crushed, that he had no recollection of how he got into the cab, or who helped him in. Coming to himself, he found that he was being driven to Fontanka. To Ishmaelovsky Bridge, then, thought Mr. Golyadkin. At this point, Mr. Golyadkin tried to think of anything else, but could not. There was something so terrible that he could not explain it. Well, never mind, our hero concluded, and he drove to Ishmaelovsky Bridge. Chapter 13. It seemed as though the weather meant to change for the better. The snow, which had till then been coming down in regular clouds, began growing visible, and here and there, tiny stars sparkled in it. It was only wet, muddy, damp and stifling, especially for Mr. Golyadkin, who could hardly breathe as it was. His greatcoat, soaked in heavy with wet, sent a sort of unpleasant warm dampness all through him, and weighed down his exhausted legs. A feverish shiver sent sharp, shooting pains all over him. He was in a painful cold sweat of exhaustion, so much so that Mr. Golyadkin even forgot to repeat at every suitable occasion with his characteristic firmness and resolution his favorite phrase that "it all may be, most likely, indeed, might turn out for the best." "But all this does not matter for the time," our hero repeated, still staunch and not downhearted, wiping from his face the cold drops that steamed in from all directions on the brim of his round hat, which was so soaked that it could not hold any more water. Adding that all this was nothing so far, our hero tried to sit on a rather thick clump of wood, which was lying near a heap of logs in Osify Ivanovitch's yard. Of course, it was no good thinking of Spanish serenades or silken ladders, but it was quite necessary to think of a modest corner, snug and private, if not altogether warm. He felt greatly tempted, we may mention in passing, by that corner in the back entry of Osify Ivanovitch's flat in which he had once, almost at the beginning of this true story, stood for 2 hours between a cupboard and an old screen, among all sorts of domestic odds and ends and useless litter. The fact is that Mr. Golyadkin had once been standing there for 2 whole hours on this occasion in Osify Ivanovitch's yard. But in regard to that modest and snug little corner, there were certain drawbacks which had not existed before. The first drawback was the fact that it was probably now a marked place, and that certain precautionary measures had been taken in regards to it since the scandal at Osify Ivanovitch's last ball. Secondly, he had to wait for a signal from Clara Osifyevna, for there was bound to be some such signal. It was always a feature in such cases, and it didn't begin with us, and it won't end with us. At this point, Mr. Golyadkin very appropriately remembered a novel he had read long before, in which the heroine, in precisely similar circumstances, signaled to Alfred by tying a pink ribbon to her window. But now, at night, in the climate of Petersburg, famous for its dampness and unreliability, a pink ribbon was hardly appropriate, and in fact, was utterly out of the question. "No, it's not a matter of silk ladders," thought our hero, "and I better stay here quietly and comfortably. I had better stand here." And he selected a place in the yard exactly opposite the window, near a stack of firewood. Of course, many persons, grooms and coachmen, were continuously crossing the yard, and there was, besides, the rumbling of wheels and the snorting of horses, and so on. Yet it was a convenient place, whether he was observed or not. But now, anyway, there was the advantage of being, to some extent, in the shadow, and no one could see Mr. Golyadkin while he himself could see everything. The windows were brightly lit up. There was a sort of ceremonious party at Osovi Ivanovich's, but he could hear no music as yet. So it's not a ball, but a party of some other sort, thought our hero, somewhat aghast. Is it today? Floated the doubt through him. Have I made a mistake in the date? Perhaps anything is possible. Yes, to be sure, anything is possible. Perhaps she wrote a letter to me yesterday, and it didn't reach me. And perhaps it did not reach me because Petrushka put his spoke in, the rascal. Oh, it was tomorrow. That is, wait with the carriage. At this point, our hero turned cold all over, and felt in his pocket for the letter, to make sure. But to his surprise, the letter was not in his pocket. How's this? Muttered Mr. Golyadkin, more dead than alive. Where did I leave it? Then I must have lost it. This is the last straw, he moaned at last. Oh, if it falls into evil hands. Perhaps it has already. Good Lord, what may it not lead to? It may lead to something like that. Ah, my miserable fate. At this point, Mr. Golyadkin began trembling like a leaf at the thought that perhaps his vicious twin had thrown his greatcoat at him, with the object of stealing the letter of which he had somehow got an inkling from Mr. Golyadkin's enemies. What's more, he's stealing it, thought our hero, as evidence. But why evidence? After the first shock of horror, the blood rushed to Mr. Golyadkin's head. Moaning and gnashing his teeth, he clutched his burning head, sank back on his block of wood, and relapsed into brooding. But he could form no coherent thought. Figures kept flittering through his brain. Incidents came back to his memory, now vaguely, now very distinctly. The tunes of some foolish songs kept ringing in his ears. He was in great distress, unnatural distress. My God, our hero thought, recovering himself a little and suppressing a muffled sob. Give me fortitude in the immensity of my afflictions. That I am done for, utterly destroyed, of that there can be no doubt, and that's all in the natural order of things, since it cannot be otherwise. To begin with, I've lost my birth. I've certainly lost it. I must have lost it. Well, supposing things are set right somehow. Supposing I have enough money to begin with. I must have another lodging, furniture of some sort. In the first place, I shan't have Petrushka. I can get on without the rascal. Somehow, with help from the people of the house. Well, that will be all right. I can go in and out when I like, and Petrushka won't grumble at my coming in late. Yes, that is so. That's why it's a good thing to have people in the house. Well, supposing that's all right, but all that's nothing to do with it. At this point, the thought of the real position again dawned upon Mr. Golyadkin's memory. He looked round. Oh Lord, have mercy on me, have mercy on me. What am I talking about? He thought, growing utterly desperate and clutching his burning head in his hands. Won't you soon be going, sir? Our hero started. Before him stood the cabman, who was also drenched through and shivering. Growing impatient, and having nothing to do, he had thought fit to take a look at Mr. Golyadkin behind the woodstack. I am all right, my friend. I am coming soon, very soon. You wait. The cabman walked away, grumbling to himself. What is he grumbling about? Mr. Golyadkin wondered through his tears. Why, I have hired him for the evening. Why, I'm within my rights now. That's so. I've hired him for the evening, and that's the end of it. If one stands still, it's just the same. That's for me to decide. I am free to drive on or not to drive on. And my staying here by the woodstack has nothing to do with the case. And don't dare to say anything. Think. The gentleman wants to stand behind the woodstack, and so he's standing behind it. And he is not disgracing anyone's honor. That's the fact of the matter. I tell you what it is, madame, if you care to know. Nowadays, madam, nobody lives in a hut, or anything of that sort. No, indeed. And in our industrial age there's no getting on without morality, a fact of which you are a fatal example, madame. You say we must get a job as a register clerk and live in a hut on the seashore. In the first place, madame, there are no register clerks on the seashore, and in the second place, we can't get a job as a register clerk. For supposing, for example, I send in a petition, present myself, saying a register clerk's place or something of the sort, and defend me from my enemy. They'll tell you, madame, they'll say, to be sure, we've lots of register clerks, and here you are not at Madame Fablar's, where you learnt the rules of good behavior of which you are a fatal example. Good behavior, madame, means staying at home, honoring your father, and not thinking about suitors prematurely. Suitors will come in good time, madame, that's so. Of course, you are bound to have some accomplishments, such as playing the piano sometimes, speaking French, history, geography, scripture, and arithmetic. That's the truth of it. And that's all you need. Cooking, too. Cooking certainly forms part of the education of a well-behaved girl. But as it is, in the first place, my fine lady, they won't let you go. They'll raise a hue and cry after you, and then they'll lock you up in a nunnery. How will it be then, madame? What will you have me do then? Would you have me, madame, follow the example of some stupid novels, and melt into tears on a neighboring hillock, gazing at the cold walls of your prison house, and finally die, following the example of some wretched German poets and novelists? Is that it, madame? But to begin with, allow me to tell you, as a friend, that things are not done like that, and in the second place, I would have given you and your parents, too, a good thrashing for letting you read French books, for French books teach you no good. There's a poison in them, a pernicious poison, madame. Or do you imagine, allow me to ask you, or do you imagine that we elope with impunity, or something of the sort? That we shall have a hut on the shore of the sea and so on, and that we shall begin billing and cooing and talking about our feelings, and that so we shall spend our lives in happiness and content, and then there will be little ones. So then we shall go to our father, the civil councillor, or Sergei Ivanovitch, and say, we've got a little one, and so on this propitious occasion to remove your curse and bless the couple. No, madame, I tell you again, that's not the way to do things, and for the first thing, there'll be no billing and cooing, and please don't reckon on it. Nowadays, madame, the husband is the master, and a good well-brought-up wife should try and please him in every way. And endearments, madame, are not in favor. Nowadays, in our industrial age, the day of Jean-Jacques Rousseau is over. The husband comes home, for instance, hungry from the office, and asks, "Isn't there something to eat, my love? A drop of vodka to drink, a bit of salt fish to eat." So then, madame, you must have the vodka and the herring ready. Your husband will eat it with relish, and he won't so much as look at you. He'll only say, "Run into the kitchen, kitten," he'll say, "and look after the dinner," and at most, once a week, he'll kiss you, even then rather indifferently. That's how it will be with us, my young lady. Yes, even the indifferently. That's how it will be, if one considers it, if it has come to one's looking at the thing in that way. And how do I come in? Why have you mixed me up in your caprices? The noble man who is suffering for your sake and will be dear to your heart forever, and so on. But in the first place, madame, I am not suited to you, you know yourself. I'm not a great hand at compliments. I'm not fond of uttering perfumed trifles for the ladies. I'm not fond of lady-killers. And I must own I've never been a beauty to look at. You won't find any swagger or false shame in me, and I tell you so now in all sincerity. This is the fact of the matter. We can boast of nothing but a straightforward, open character and common sense. We have nothing to do with intrigues. I am not one to intrigue. I say so, and I'm proud of it. That's the fact of the matter. I wear no mask among straightforward people. And to tell you the whole truth. Suddenly Mr. Golyadkin started. The red and perfectly sopping beard of the cabman appeared round the woodstack again. "I am coming directly, my friend. I'm coming at once, you know." Mr. Golyadkin responded in a trembling and failing voice. The cabman scratched his head, then stroked his beard, and moved a step forward, stood still, and looked suspiciously at Mr. Golyadkin. "I am coming directly, my friend. You see, my friend, just a little, you see. Only a second. More. Here, you see, my friend." "Aren't you coming at all?" the cabman asked at last, directly coming up to Mr. Golyadkin. "No, my friend, I'm coming directly. I am waiting, you see, my friend." "So I see." "You see, my friend, what part of the country do you come from, my friend?" "We are under a master." "And have you a good master?" "All right." "Yes, my friend, you stay here, my friend. You see, have you been in Petersburg long, my friend?" "It's a year since I came." "And are you getting on all right, my friend?" "Middling." "To be sure, my friend, to be sure. You must thank Providence, my friend. You must look out for straightforward people. Straightforward people are none too common nowadays, my friend. He would give you washing, food, and drink, my good fellow. A good man would. But sometimes you see tears shed for the sake of gold, my friend. You see a lamentable example. That's the fact of the matter, my friend." The cabman seemed to feel sorry for Mr. Golyadkin. "Well, Your Honor, I'll wait. Will Your Honor be waiting long?" "No, my friend, no. I won't wait any longer, my good man. What do you think, my friend? I rely upon you. I won't stay any longer. Aren't you going at all?" "No, my friend, no. I'll reward you, my friend. That's the fact of the matter." "How much ought I give you, my dear fellow?" "What you hired me for. Please, sir, I've been waiting here a long time. Don't be hard on a man, sir." "Well, here, my good man, here." At this point, Mr. Golyadkin gave 6 roubles to the cabman, and made up his mind in earnest to waste no more time. That is, to clear off straight away, especially as the cabman was dismissed and everything was over, and so it was useless to wait longer. He rushed out of the yard, went out of the gate, turned to the left and, without looking round, took to his heels, breathless and rejoicing. "Perhaps it will be for the best," he thought, "and perhaps in this way I've run away from trouble." Mr. Golyadkin suddenly became all at once light-hearted. "Oh, if only it would all work out for the best," thought our hero, though he put little faith in his own words. "I know what I'll do," he thought. "No, I know. I'd better try the other tack. Or wouldn't it be better to do this?" In this way, hesitating and seeking for the solution of his doubts, our hero ran to Semyonovsky Bridge. But while running to Semyonovsky Bridge, he very rationally and conclusively decided to return. "It will be better so," he thought. "I had better try the other tack. That is, I will just go. I'll look on simply as an outsider, and nothing more. Whatever happens, it's not my fault. That's the fact of the matter. That's how it shall be now." Deciding to return, our hero actually did return, the more readily because with this happy thought, he convinced of himself now as quite an outsider. It's the best thing. One's not responsible for anything, and one will see all that's necessary. That's the fact of the matter. It was a safe plan, and that settled it. Reassured, he crept back under the peaceful shelter of his soothing and protecting woodstack, and began gazing intently at the window. This time he was not destined to gaze and wait long. Suddenly a strange commotion became apparent at all the windows. Figures appeared, curtains were drawn back. Whole groups of people were crowding to the windows at Osify Ivanovitch's flat. All were peeping out looking for something in the yard. From the security of his woodstack, our hero, too, began with curiosity watching the general commotion, and with interest craned forward to right and to left, so far as he could within the shadow of the woodstack. Suddenly he started, held his breath, and almost sat down with horror. It seemed to him, in short he realized, that they were looking for nothing and for nobody but him, Mr. Golyadkin. Everyone was looking in his direction. It was impossible to escape. They saw him. In a flutter, Mr. Golyadkin huddled as closely as he could to the woodstack, and only then noticed that the treacherous shadow had betrayed him, that it did not cover him completely. Our hero would have been delighted at that moment to creep into a mouse hole in the woodstack, and there meekly to remain, if only it had been possible. But it was utterly impossible. In his agony, he began at last staring openly and boldly at the windows. It was the best thing to do. And suddenly he glowed with shame. He had been fully discovered. Everyone was staring at him at once. They were all waving their hands. All were nodding their heads at him. All were calling to him. Then several windows creaked as they opened. Several voices shouted something to him at once. "I wonder why they don't whip these naughty girls as children," our hero muttered to himself, losing his head completely. Suddenly there ran somebody down the steps. We know who, without his hat or greatcoat, breathless, rubbing his hands, wriggling, capering, perfidiously, displaying intense joy at seeing Mr. Golyadkin. "Yakov Petrovich," whispered this individual, so notorious for his worthlessness. "Yakov Petrovich, are you here? You'll catch cold. It's chilly here, Yakov Petrovich. Come indoors." "Yakov Petrovich, no, I'm all right, Yakov Petrovich," our hero muttered in a submissive voice. "No, this won't do, Yakov Petrovich. I beg you, I humbly beg you to wait with us. Make him welcome and bring him in, they say, Yakov Petrovich." "No, Yakov Petrovich, you see, I had better go home, Yakov Petrovich," said our hero, burning at a slow fire and freezing at the same time with shame and terror. "No, no, no, no," whispered the loathsome person. "No, no, no, on no account. Come along," he said resolutely, and he dragged Mr. Golyadkin Sr. to the steps. Mr. Golyadkin Sr. did not at all want to go, but as everyone was looking at them, it would have been stupid to struggle and resist. So our hero went, though, indeed, one cannot say that he went, because he did not know in the least what was being done with him. Though, after all, it made no difference. Before our hero had time to recover himself and come to his senses, he found himself in the drawing room. He was pale, disheveled, harassed. With lustrous eyes he scanned the crowd. Horror. The drawing room, all the rooms, were full to overflowing. There were masses of people, a whole galaxy of ladies, and all were crowding round Mr. Golyadkin, and he perceived clearly that they were all forcing him in one direction. "Not towards the door," was the thought that floated through Mr. Golyadkin's mind. They were, in fact, forcing him not towards the door, but Orsovy Ivanovich's easy chair. On one side of the armchair stood Clara Orsovyevna, pale, languid, melancholy, but gorgeously dressed. Mr. Golyadkin was particularly struck by a little white flower, which rested on his superb hair. On the other side of the armchair stood Vladimir Semyonovich, clad in black, with his new order in his buttonhole. Mr. Golyadkin was let in, as we have described above, straight up to Orsovy Ivanovich. On one side of him, Mr. Golyadkin, who assumed an air of great decorum and propriety, to the immense relief of our hero, while on the other side was Andrei Filipovich, with a very solemn expression on his face. "What can it mean?" Mr. Golyadkin wondered. When he saw that he was being led to Orsovy Ivanovich, an idea struck him like a flash of lightning. The thought of the intercepted letter darted through his brain. In great agony, our hero stood before Orsovy Ivanovich's chair. "What will he say now?" he wondered to himself. "Of course, it will be all above board now. That is, straightforward and, one may say, honorable. I shall say this is how it is, and so on." But what our hero apparently feared did not happen. Orsovy Ivanovich received Mr. Golyadkin very warmly, and though he did not hold out his hand to him, yet as he gazed at our hero, he shook his grey and venerable head, shook it with an air of solemn melancholy, and yet of good will. So, at least, it seemed to Mr. Golyadkin. He even fancied that a tear glittered in Orsovy Ivanovich's lustrous eyes. He raised his head and saw that there seemed to be tears, too, on the eyelashes of Clara Orsovyevna, who was standing by. That there seemed to be something of the same sort even in the eyes of Vladimir Semyonovich. That the unruffled and composed dignity of Andrei Filipovich has the same significance as the general tearful sympathy. That even the young man who was so much like a civil councillor, seizing the opportunity, was sobbing bitterly. Though perhaps this was all only Mr. Golyadkin's fancy, because he was so much moved himself, and distinctly felt the hot tears running down his cheeks. Feeling reconciled with mankind and his destiny, and filled with love at the moment, not only for Osovy Ivanovich, not only for the whole part collected here, but even for his noxious twin, who seemed now to be by no means noxious, and not even to be his twin at all, but a person very agreeable in himself, and in no way connected with him. Our hero, in a voice broken with sobs, tried to express his feelings to Osovy Ivanovich, but was too overcome by all that he had gone through, and could not utter a word. He could only, with an expressive gesture, point meekly to his heart. At last, probably to spare the feelings of the old man, Andrei Filipovich led Mr. Golyadkin a little away, though he seemed to leave him free to do as he liked. Smiling, muttering something to himself, somewhat bewildered, yet almost completely reconciled with fate and his fellow creatures, our hero began to make his way through the crowd of guests. Everyone made way for him. Everyone looked at him with strange curiosity and with mysterious, unaccountable sympathy. Our hero went into another room. He met with the same attention everywhere. He was vaguely conscious of the whole crowd closely following him, noting every step he took, talking in undertones amongst themselves of something very interesting, shaking their heads, arguing and discussing in whispers. Mr. Golyadkin wanted very much to know what they were discussing in whispers. Looking round, he saw near him Mr. Golyadkin Jr. Feeling an overwhelming impulse to seize his hand and draw him aside, Mr. Golyadkin begged the other Yakov Petrovich almost particularly to cooperate with him in all his future undertakings, and not to abandon him at the critical moment. Mr. Golyadkin Jr. nodded his head gravely, and warmly pressed the hand of Mr. Golyadkin Sr. Our hero's heart was quivering with the intensity of his emotion. He was gasping for breath, however. He felt so oppressed, he felt that all those eyes fastened upon him were oppressing and dominating him. Mr. Golyadkin caught a glimpse of the councillor who wore a wig. The latter was looking at him with a stern, searching eye, not in the least softened by the general sympathy. Our hero made up his mind to go straight up to him in order to smile at him and have an immediate explanation, but this somehow did not come off. For one instant, Mr. Golyadkin became almost unconscious, almost lost all memory, all feeling. When he came to himself again, he noticed that he was the center of a large ring formed by the rest of the party round him. Suddenly Mr. Golyadkin's name was called from the other room. Noise and excitement all rushed to the door of the first room, almost carrying our hero along with them. In the crush, the hard-hearted councillor in the wig was side by side with Mr. Golyadkin, and, taking our hero by the hand, he made him sit down opposite Osovy Ivanovich, at some distance from the latter, however. Everyone in the room sat down. The guests were arranged in rows round Mr. Golyadkin and Osovy Ivanovich. Everything was hushed, everyone preserved a solemn silence. Everyone was watching Osovy Ivanovich, evidently expecting something out of the ordinary. Mr. Golyadkin noticed that beside Osovy Ivanovich's chair, and directly facing the councillor, sat Mr. Golyadkin Jr. with Andrei Filipovich. The silence was prolonged. They were evidently expecting something. Just as it is in a family when someone is setting off on a far journey. We've only to stand up and pray now, thought our hero. Suddenly, there was a general stir which interrupted Mr. Golyadkin's reflections. Something they had been waiting for happened. "He is coming! He is coming!" passed from one to another in the crowd. Who is it that is coming? Floated through Mr. Golyadkin's mind, and he shuddered at a strange sensation. High time, too, said the councillor, looking intently at Andrei Ivanovich. Andrei Filipovich, for his part, glanced at Osovy Ivanovich. Osovy Ivanovich gravely and solemnly nodded his head. "Let us stand up," said the councillor, and he made Mr. Golyadkin get up. All rose to their feet. Then the councillor took Mr. Golyadkin Sr. by the hand, and Andrei Filipovich took Mr. Golyadkin Jr., And in this way, these two precisely similar persons were conducted through the expectant crowd surrounding them. Ahira looked about him in perplexity, but was at once checked and his attention was called to Mr. Golyadkin Jr., who was holding out his hand to him. "They want to reconcile us," thought our hero, and with emotion he held out his hand to Mr. Golyadkin Jr., and then bent his head forwards towards him. The other Mr. Golyadkin did the same. At this point, it seemed to Mr. Golyadkin Sr. that his perfidious friend was smiling, that he gave a sly, hurried wink to the crowd of onlookers, and that there was something sinister in the face of the worthless Mr. Golyadkin Jr., that he even made a grimace at the moment of his Judas kiss. There was a ringing in Mr. Golyadkin's ears, and a darkness before his eyes. It seemed to him that an infinite multitude, an unending series of precisely similar Mr. Golyadkins were noisily bursting in at every door of the room. But it was too late. The resounding, treacherous kiss was over, and then quite an unexpected event occurred. The door opened noisily, and in the doorway stood a man, the very sight of whom sent a chill to Mr. Golyadkin's heart. He stood rooted to the spot. A cry of horror died away in his choking throat. Yet Mr. Golyadkin knew it all beforehand, and had had a presentiment of something of the sort for a long time. The new arrival went up to Mr. Golyadkin solemnly and gravely. Mr. Golyadkin knew this personage very well. He had seen him before, had seen him very often, had seen him that day. This personage was a tall, thick-set man in a black dress coat, with a good-sized cross on his breast, and was possessed of thick, very black whiskers. Nothing was lacking but the cigar in his mouth to complete the picture. Yet this person's eyes, as we have mentioned already, sent a chill to the heart of Mr. Golyadkin. With a grave and solemn air, this terrible man approached the pitiable hero of our story. Our hero held out his hand to him. The stranger took his hand and drew him along with him. With a crushed and desperate air, our hero looked about him. It's Christian Ivanovich Rupinspitz, doctor of medicine and surgery. Your old acquaintance, Yakov Petrovich," a detestable voice whispered in Mr. Golyadkin's ear. He looked round. It was Mr. Golyadkin's twin, so revolting in the despicable meanness of his soul. A malicious, indecent joy shone in his countenance. He was rubbing his hands with rapture. He was turning his head from side to side in ecstasy. He was fawning round everyone in delight and seemed ready to dance with glee. At last he pranced forward, took a candle from one of the servants and walked in front, showing the way to Mr. Golyadkin and Christian Ivanovich. Mr. Golyadkin heard the whole party in the drawing-room rush after him, crowding and squeezing one another, and all beginning to repeat after Mr. Golyadkin himself, "It is all right, don't be afraid, Yakov Petrovich. This is your old friend and acquaintance. You know, Christian Ivanovich Rupinspitz." At last they came out on the brightly colored stairs. There was a group of people on the stairs too. The front door was thrown open noisily, and Mr. Golyadkin found himself on the steps, together with Christian Ivanovich. At the entrance stood a carriage with 4 horses that was snorting with impatience. The malignant Mr. Golyadkin Jr. in 3 bounds flew down the stair and opened the carriage door himself. Christian Ivanovich, with an impressive gesture, asked Mr. Golyadkin to get in. There was no need of the impressive gesture, however. There were plenty of people to help him in. Faint with horror, Mr. Golyadkin looked back. The whole of the brightly colored staircase was crowded with people. Inquisitive eyes were looking at him from all sides. Olsevy Ivanovich himself was sitting in his easy chair on the top landing, and watching all that took place with deep interest. Everyone was waiting. A murmur of impatience passed through the crowd when Mr. Golyadkin looked back. "I hope I have done nothing reprehensible, or that can call for severity, and general attention in regard to my official relations," our hero brought out in desperation. A clamor of talk rose all around him. All were shaking their heads. Tears started from Mr. Golyadkin's eyes. "In that case, I'm ready. I have full confidence, and I entrust my fate to Christian Ivanovich." No sooner had Mr. Golyadkin declared that he entrusted his fate to Christian Ivanovich than a dreadful, deafening shout of joy came from all surrounding him, and was repeated in a sinister echo through the whole of the waiting crowd. Then Christian Ivanovich on one side and Andrei Filipovich on the other helped Mr. Golyadkin into the carriage. His double, in his usually nasty way, was helping him get in from behind. The unhappy Mr. Golyadkin Sr. took his last look on everything and all, and, shivering like a kitten that has been drenched with cold water, if the comparison may be permitted, got into the carriage. Christian Ivanovich followed him immediately. The carriage door slammed. There was a swish of the whip on the horses' backs. The horses started off. The crowd dashed after Mr. Golyadkin. The shrill, furious shouts of his enemies pursued him by way of good wishes for his journey. For some time, several persons were still running by the carriage that bore away Mr. Golyadkin, but by degrees they were left behind, till at last they all disappeared. Mr. Golyadkin's unworthy twin kept up longer than anyone. With his hands in the trouser pockets of his green uniform, he ran on with a satisfied air, skipping first to one and then to the other side of the carriage, sometimes catching hold of the window frame and hanging on by it, poking his head in at the window, and throwing farewell kisses to Mr. Golyadkin. But he began to get tired. He was less and less often to be seen, and at last vanished altogether. There was a dull ache in Mr. Golyadkin's heart. A hot rush of blood set Mr. Golyadkin's head throbbing. He felt stifled. He longed to unbutton himself, to bare his breast, to cover it with snow and pour cold water on it. He sank at last into forgetfulness. When he came to himself, he saw that the horses were taking him along an unfamiliar road. There were dark patches of copse on each side of it. It was desolate and deserted. Suddenly he almost swooned. 2 fiery eyes were staring at him in the darkness, and those 2 eyes were glittering with malignant, hellish glee. "That's not Christian Ivanovich. Who is it? Or is it he? It is. It is Christian Ivanovich, but not the old Christian Ivanovich. It's another Christian Ivanovich. It's a terrible Christian Ivanovich. Christian Ivanovich, I believe I'm all right, Christian Ivanovich." Our hero was beginning timidly in a trembling voice, hoping by his meekness and submission to soften the terrible Christian Ivanovich a little. "You get free quarters, wood, with light and service, of which you deserve not." Christian Ivanovich's answer rang out, stern and terrible as a judge's sentence. Our hero shrieked and clutched his head in his hands. Alas, for a long while he had been haunted by a presentiment of this. The end.